Curtis, are you there? Okay.
I wasn't sure if I was muted or unmuted. Now I can't get my video going back again. I don't ever do Zoom.
No, well, good, because I'm going to send you over to YouTube.
Okay.
So in the chat, I'm going to put the there's the link to the YouTube.
Okay.
So if we end up not having anybody in there, like you can minimize minimize all of this, and there's probably about a 5-second delay for the YouTube.
That's all right. I'm my whole life runs on a 5-second delay.
What I did yesterday, because I just wanted to see how it worked, I let it run the whole entire time. I actually left both of them running, and what I did is I just completely muted the YouTube. So like I couldn't hear. I just muted the YouTube video. But if you can do the chat in there, and we can do this one of two ways. Either you can just use your personal name in the chat, and so go in there and say, hi, you know, I'm Curtis Banks with DS Murphy, and I'm here to answer questions during today's class. Or I can add you to the Academy, and you can answer questions through the Academy. So it depends on if you want your name to show up or if you want your name to show up as Academy.
Honestly, it doesn't matter. And like I said, this is the first time I've ever even done a Zoom, so I can't even figure out how to minimize this so I can go to the other link for the YouTube. I mean, I seriously avoid this like the plague, and unfortunately, this is not the right.
Okay, so there should be a way to exit full screen at the top. Like if it ballooned your whole entire screen, there should be at the top. It should be able to say exit full screen.
Got it.
And then you can, yeah.
And then let me see if I can put in this. I had to minimize this so I can go to the other link for the YouTube. I mean, I seriously avoid this like the plague, and unfortunately, this is not. And now I'm getting
sorry.
a delay.
Oops, I had the sound on my on my computer going.
Got it.
And then you can. Yeah. Oh, how did that go back up again? Okay, I clicked. There we go. Poof. That was painful. All right. Zoom has sound and okay, Zoom has sound and YouTube has no sound. All right, perfect.
Curtis, how's the sound? Is it super echoey? You're
You
muted.
muted yourself, but you sound good, Kate.
Okay. Because I'm in the back house so that I can have multiple screens, and also so the people that are working on our house aren't loud, but it sounds echoey to me.
It's not too bad. I could listen to it.
Okay.
Like it's not bad.
Okay.
See, and now I'm in a loop. Now that I've got both the YouTube
So
and the other,
yeah,
there's
so
like a
the
delay and I
YouTube
keep getting
one,
in a loop.
the YouTube one on your YouTube screen, just put that one all the way down to sound off.
Also, I'm on 2 screens, Maple. So if I look like I'm looking up, it's because I have them right on top of each other, and I have the chat on my second screen. So I should be able to do the chat better this way.
You're probably not going to want to pay attention to it because it's going to make you dizzy.
Well, I mean, just every once in a while, just checking in case.
You're with 200 people. It's gonna. I just sent it out to 200 people, and you know that we're gonna get like 20 people within the first 10 minutes that are all of a sudden like trying to register at the very last second too.
Right.
Yeah. So just sit tight. Curtis, if you have a question that you think Kate should answer, you do have the Zoom, and go ahead and pop it in there. Like say question from YouTube, and then put it in there, and then we'll make sure, if a question comes from YouTube, we'll make sure that it gets addressed. That means that sound good?
Am I sharing my screen or are you sharing yours?
You're going to share yours. I just was putting something up for now.
Can you make sure I'm sharing the right one? Because the modified version that is pulling up for me in Teams says it will modify.
You're going to need to shut all your other windows, Kate. Kate, you were pausing. Your feed was really rough. You're going to want to close all your other windows.
Okay.
And the emails are still sending. Oh, last one just went out.
What does that mean?
Hey guys.
It took that long for all the emails to go out.
I still have an audio loop going. I keep getting everybody talking over themselves, over each other. I can't do anything.
Curtis, did you turn off the sound on your YouTube? Your YouTube video should have 0 sound. You want to turn that sound off. So on your YouTube video itself, you want to, so let me show you. Kate, I'm stealing the screen for a second.
I can't even hear you to walk me through it.
Okay. I switched my internet to the one that's right underneath
here. Kate, give me 1 second. 1 second. Do you see, you have to mute your YouTube. So that way you don't have a loop. Can you hear me, Curtis, now? Are you good?
I can hear you.
And are you done with your loop now?
I mean, I'm muted on YouTube, but I don't know how to turn it off completely.
The sound on your YouTube?
Right.
So it should just be like, you should just hit that little speaker on your YouTube, and that should take care of all your audio problems.
So that- I don't need this.
That is really weird watching my screen and screen. The Zoom of my Zoom. Oh, and Kate, I'm going to spotlight you.
Okay.
Um,
I need to be able to get the most current version of Crazy Market that you manipulated this morning, because right now the one that's showing up in Teams is the one I touched.
you told me to email it to you, and I emailed it to you.
That is the one you want me to use. Got it.
Yes.
Cool.
This is the weirdest thing I've ever seen. All right. I still need. I think you have to share for me to spotlight you because it's not letting me spotlight you.
What do I have to share?
No, just your screen. Maybe you just have to share your screen for me to spotlight you. But yesterday, I mean, I was just able to just go in and just say spotlight. And now it's not in my menu.
Okay. Tabitha put up a bunch of firewalls in Teams.
Can't you just go to the Gmail that I sent? Because I sent it as an attachment. So
Yep, it's not letting me open the attachment on this computer without signing into Teams. Ugh. Why?
Good morning. Oh, Andy said I received an email. You didn't receive an email. Wait, let me see. All folders are updated. Yes, that. So everybody has to register through Zoom. So as soon as you click on Zoom register, it'll put you right in the class.
Maple, I don't usually play through Teams. What's the presentational? What do I click on to present? Because all I see is sharing comments. Do you see what I mean?
Okay, can you share your screen?
I would. I need the presentation to be able to pull.
It's
And right
just
now
you.
it's
It's just you and me. Can you share that screen so I can see what you're looking at so I can guide you faster?
Yep.
So that doesn't make sense. So because you should have had to go in and you should have had to type in your name and it should let you in.
Do you see it now? It's not a presentation view.
Oh, wait a second. Yes. Oh, I see you. Here you go.
Where's the presentation view in Teams? Because I never do it through Teams.
Okay. All right. So Kathy's in. There you go. All right. So let me see. You are. Oh, it's down at the very bottom, right next to the part where you shrink and enlarge. 2 over. 1 more. There you go.
Sweet. My husband's firewalls are fighting Tabitha's firewalls.
All right. Give me 2 seconds. I put on a comfy shirt. Let me go. I feel like I'm just like in PJs, but I'm not. Everybody should be coming in. And then.
Do you want me to wait till 5 before to admit everybody, or just do it in a few?
I'll be back. But yeah, let's wait till 5. Plus we have the YouTube running. We have 2 people watching now. I don't know if Curtis is there. He might be there.
Okay.
All right. And I forget that everybody can hear me on the YouTube, so there is no privacy. Now that you're doing that, let me see if I can spotlight you now.
Hey, Kate, I'm Kathy Vitale.
Hey, Kathy, how are you?
Good, how are you?
Good. Just ready for a big old class.
Yeah, you've got a big one. I think we're going to beat Jim's class last week.
I hope so. I'm all about a little competition.
There you go. Yeah, I don't know. She never confirmed if we beat Scott's class.
Oh, I don't know. I don't know if you did. Okay, give me a second. Let me come right back. So Kathy, so like when you talk, James, when everybody talks, we need to make sure that we give them spotlights, because right now the only person who's going to be visible today is Kate, unless we take the spotlight off of her. But because we're broadcasting it, we don't want people to have to go on YouTube that don't want to be on YouTube.
Okay. So I don't know how to do that, but we'll see how it works.
Yeah, we're gonna see. So right now I'm the only one on the YouTube watching it. So we had, okay, let's get Curtis back in here. Oh, and Kathy, I'm going to give you co-hosting.
Okay.
So as you see your team, you can let them in.
Yeah, and that's what I'm trying. If I do the gallery, okay, there we go.
And I'm going to turn off this little noise. All right, 2 seconds.
Curtis, did we get your problem fixed? I hope so.
Not sure if it got fixed or not. I logged out, logged back in, so hopefully.
Oh, and an email just a minute ago. Period. You did register? Question mark.
righty.
Welcome back, Maple.
Thank you. Let me get you back. I need to get back to gallery. There we go. All right, so Curtis, are you all set? Does it work with the sound and everything?
I asked him a second ago and he said that he restarted and he's hoping it works. And
Okay,
it is.
you're on mute
I
right
believe
now.
that it's working.
Okay, you don't hear like this awful echo now and loop and.
Yeah, that was crazy. I
I'm
had
so
a delay on top of a delay on top of a delay, and it was honestly, I was about to walk away.
I saw that. I'm like, oh, give him a second. Because another thing we could do is like you could just leave the Zoom, and then if a message comes in that you want to go to Kate, you could just message me in Teams,
Maple,
like send me in chat. Yes.
Maple, I've got James texting that he's waiting for someone to let him in.
Oh, you can do that too. You have access.
I
How do
usually admit everybody right now, so that's why they're all
Well,
waiting. Because I usually do it right 5 minutes
He-
before to make
He's
sure.
part of the shelter team.
Oh,
I'll
But
let him in. I'll let him in. I'll
Yeah,
let him in.
you have access. You have all the co-hosting rights.
Okay, I'll start admitting the shelter people in.
Just so we know who we got in it.
Y'all, do y'all have a video or something to show at the beginning, or just want to say a few words?
No, James is going to introduce everyone. The president of, James, are you on now?
I'm on now. Hello, hello, hello.
Yeah,
Hi,
I'm
James.
letting all the shelter people in now. As I
Hey,
see
Kate.
them.
How are you?
I am well.
Thanks for doing this for us today. We're excited.
We're excited. We're just trying to set some records with a number of people in a Zoom.
Yeah, we're going to try to beat Scott Murphy's number.
If I can beat Scott Murphy's number, you can be sure he'll hear about it. So don't worry.
I love contests, so let's do it. Let's go
Yeah.
for it.
I got a bottle of wine in my kitchen from our VP, so I am no stranger to a good bet and some healthy competition. So
Love it, love it. So how will this play out in the opening minutes? Do you want me to welcome everybody and then introduce you, or how best to?
Maple's going to be the best person to ask that question because she is the puppeteer, if you will.
Okay.
So the best thing to do is, first of all, we got to get everyone in here. And give me 1 second. But once we we'll then have you guys say hello, and then we'll go over to and we'll let Kate introduce herself because she has a slide for it.
James, so far I've got Stanley, I've got Jim, and other people are texting going, how do I get in? I guess they forgot to register. So
Yeah, Stanley was the same for me. I sent her the Zoom
Stanley,
link.
you're on now, right?
Yeah, I did forget to register.
Okay.
One minor
Jim, are you
problem.
on? Jim Shue, are you in?
I'm here, Kathy.
Okay,
Hey.
cool.
Um,
Trying to see if there's anybody else that I can let in quick.
Nancy,
Just let
Ann,
Nancy-
and Aaron.
I
I
sent
just
Nancy.
emailed
I'm here.
Nancy the link. I let Aaron, you're in, right?
I'm here.
Yeah, I let her in.
Thank
Nancy's trying to link in now. I just sent her an email.
Jim
Tammy's
Shue,
not going to be on.
works
Kim's
me
not
on
gonna
my
be on.
house, my friend.
What's that?
I remember you, Kate.
Jim,
How are you?
You were my lender for my house. How are you?
Yes, ma'am. I do remember you, Kate. I didn't know you were DS Murphy.
Yeah, good friends with Maura.
Yeah, of
Maura
course.
Nicole.
Yeah,
Small world. We love that.
it is a small world.
He's my guy.
Thank you.
Ann Falconer, are you on?
I haven't seen her link in yet.
And Nancy Grieve.
Not Nancy yet either.
Okay.
I just sent her your link.
Well, those are I was going to go this order. Midtown Kathy, Chattanooga Stanley, Roswell Alec, Intown Aaron, Decatur Ann, Windward Jim, and then let Nancy kind of have the last word and then introduce Kate.
Alex not in yet, is he?
Kate Maryhugh. Did I say it right? I got it. I'm on it.
Yes, it's like a happy color.
Oh, there's Nancy. Let me let Nancy in.
That's good.
I
like
just
that.
let Nancy in.
Nancy,
Where's
testing.
Alec? Alec.
Alex should be in just a minute, Kathy.
There he is. All right, Alex in. So who we got left? We've got Ann.
Yeah, Ann and Nancy.
Nancy, I'll let in. Nancy, you're in,
I'm
right?
here. Yeah,
Gotcha.
I'm trying to get a full screen.
I don't see Ann.
Look for Michelle Muller instead. Nancy, maybe ask Ann if she's joining.
Okay. Can't get y'all to look at full screen here.
Maple, are you accessible?
Yes, I was just getting, I forgot to register. Can I still get in? So,
Maple, with it being 11, how will the opening minutes go here? Will I welcome the group and introduce Kate, or do you want to say something, or how do you want it to play out?
so let's go ahead and let's open up and we'll say, we're going to give it like 5 more minutes and more people come in. And because it's still gonna be kind of chaotic for a few more minutes because people are gonna be late coming in because they always are. So I'm gonna go ahead and hit admit all now. And as they come in, we're gonna say, welcome, welcome. We're gonna give 5 more
Who's going to
minutes and
do
we'll get
that?
started.
Who's going to do the welcome?
She will.
You will?
Yeah, I'll just, hello, everyone. I see you're getting all the audio and video connected.
Morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you everyone for coming today.
Good morning.
Good morning.
So while you guys are all, working on your audio and getting your video all set up, we're gonna go ahead and wait till 11:05 before we start saying our welcomes and our good mornings. And we'll go ahead and let our sponsors address the group from Shelter Mortgage.
So good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Understanding Values in This Crazy Market virtual class, sponsored by Shelter Home Mortgage. I'm James Williamson. I'm the president of Shelter Home Mortgage, and thanks for being with us this morning. We know it's a crazy market out there, so this is a very appropriate class to take during this time, understanding what the appraisers are doing and how they're approaching values and some of the crazy prices that they're seeing. It's going to be really important to understand how all that connects together. We've got a great teacher this morning. Excited to introduce her in just a minute, but know you'll get a lot out of the class today. So we are honored, Shelter Home Mortgage is honored to be in 6 Keller Williams offices around town. And they're all very well represented on the call this morning. We're very grateful for our partnership with Keller Williams, for us, which is now almost 11 years strong. And so thanks to all of you for the support that you give to Shelter. We are grateful for you and your business. And one of the ways that we can best serve you and your customers in this crazy market is through our pre-approval program that we call Fast Track. So this is where we get the borrower approved before they make an offer. So the offer is stronger and they've got a greater chance of winning. So be sure to ask your Shelter loan officer for more details about that program as needed. And speaking of our Shelter Home Mortgage loan officers, we have an amazing all-star team. They're on the call with us right now to open up the CE course today. So let's hear from them. Please welcome. We'll start with Kathy Vitale out of the Atlanta Midtown office. Good morning, Kathy.
Hey, good morning, Midtown. A lot of you guys on the call. I can see it. I think I even saw Denise on there. Denise, you're in there, I think. Tangi, I'm seeing a lot of names. I am in Midtown. Yeah, hey.
Hey, Kathy, do you
Yes.
I don't want anybody to miss out on what you all are saying because it's so important. And we keep getting more and more people entering this call. We're supposed to have 190, and right now we're only around 100. Do you
So we
want
want to wait a minute?
Want to give them maybe 5 more minutes, and then we can introduce again just to make sure that they hear y'all? Because I really want your words with Keller Williams and with Shelter Mortgage to get out there. That
Sounds good to me, James. hold on. We've got up to 100 now and counting.
Okay, awesome. I realize there's a little bit of technical difficulty too with some of the messages coming through. So bear with us a couple minutes and we'll crank back up in a few.
Awesome. Yeah, I think maybe James will have you reintroduce in about 5 minutes and make sure we get more people on here so they can hear you. That'd be great.
Yeah, the first link that I got was not working.
Loud. That was super loud.
Yeah, Kathy, I saw you pop up and I had to allow you in, so I don't know what was going on.
Thank you very much for letting me in.
Of course.
Some people don't want to.
You?
If anybody is having any technical difficulties at any point during this presentation, Maple Evans is the head of our academy and she is a whiz. Just send her a private message in the chat if you have any technical issues or questions during that might be able to be helped through the chat. It's probably your best mode.
Yeah, my camera is not working. This is Livia. Should I just go out and try to come in again?
It's probably a good yes. Sometimes that's what kicks the camera into motion.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, because we do need to have everybody's camera on for the purposes of continued ed.
Hello, Susan speaking.
Got a couple of people not getting the link. Send it out.
All right. Maple, I am sure, is working diligently to make sure that everybody's on. We're up to 120 right now. So maybe give 2 more minutes and we'll see to make sure those other people that don't have the link get it. Though you don't hear her, she is.
Yeah, I'm furiously trying to take
infuriating
care.
that.
I'm over here working for sure.
She's unheard, but I tell you, she's a miracle worker in the background.
All right.
Well, good morning, all. My name's John Allred. I'm a appraiser with DS Murphy and Associates. I'll be on this call as well to answer any questions, to try to give Kate a little break there.
John, I appreciate you. You're fantastic.
And that is a really good point. So we have 2 additional appraisers here with us today. So we have John Allred and we have Curtis Banks. And we opened up YouTube. So if you are not here for CE today, you can have the exact same presentation on YouTube. And we have Curtis Banks, another appraiser there on YouTube that is able to answer questions there. So which we also can tie in. So if a question needs to go all the way back to Kate, we can also get that question all the way back into Kate as well. But this way we can have, instead of having the instructions stop, you can get your question answered by an appraiser right there in the chat, making it more efficient for everybody.
And a lot of times I can get to the chat, but with 190 people, chances are I'm going to need a little John Allred help. So, but feel free to use the chat.
What time does it start?
11 now.
Sign up for that. Can you sign up at the last minute?
I can wait, I can send you the
link?
yeah, I can
Yeah,
send you.
I'll listen in the background. I might sign up for it.
Okay, hold on.
Have a new guest for the meeting.
Maple, can you see Christine Cleveland? She wants to know that if you can see her video for CE.
Say that one more time again.
Can you see Christine Cleveland for CE? Her video.
I just saw her.
I see you.
All right, Christine, we see you. Woo.
All right, so we are
Hey,
at
can-
119 in here right now.
Okay, excuse me. Can anyone hear me? This is Andrea.
We can.
We can hear
Okay,
you.
some of you, I can hear you very good, and I don't know if that means you're not speaking loud enough or not good enough, but I've got the volume and everything turned on, but can we speak a little louder?
Yes. And so as we get started, we'll work on that. And the other thing that's going to happen is once we get started, once Kate starts presenting, we're going to go ahead and we're going to mute everybody and we're going to use hand raising. So what happens is if somebody's microphone is not on mute, what it does is it kind of quiets down the presenter and it causes interference. So we're going to end up putting everybody on mute and use the chat and hand raising.
So I'll go ahead and welcome everybody this morning. Again, my name is James Williamson. I'm the president of Shelter Home Mortgage. If you're looking for the understanding values in this crazy market class, you've made it to the right place. So good morning and welcome. We are in 6 Keller Williams offices around town. We're very proud to be in these offices. We have tremendous partnerships that stretch back over a decade. I was just scrolling through names while we've been waiting here a few minutes and go way back with a lot of people who are on the call this morning. So it's great to see your name. I wish I was seeing you in person. So maybe we'll have an opportunity to do that at some point in the near future. But wanted you to hear from a few of our loan officers this morning who are out in the field before I turn it over to Kate and we get going with the class. So good morning to you, Kathy Vitale, down at the Atlanta Midtown office.
Hey, good morning, everyone. I am representing Midtown today in our beautiful office. Tammy is still in California with the grandson and her daughters having a great time. She'll be back next week. And Kim had another appointment. We do appreciate you, Midtown. Denise Buchanan, I think you're on the call. Appreciate your friendship and business partnership over the last 14 years and just look forward to building more relationships down here.
We love you, Kathy.
Thank you.
Love it, Kathy. Great stuff. Good morning, Stanley Caldwell at the Chat North office.
Good morning. Hello, Chat North. I love me some agents in here. sitting at the office as we speak. And congratulations on taking a CE class on appraisals. There's so many nuances, and getting knowledgeable on this topic right now, I think is super important to your career and job right now. So congratulations, and I hope you enjoy it.
Love it. Good stuff. Thank you, Stanley. Good morning, Alec Jones in Roswell.
Good morning, everybody. Good morning, KW Roswell. I'm flipping through. I'm seeing a lot of Roswell agents here today. The class last week was awesome. And Kate, I know myself and everyone here is excited for what you have to teach us today, but we are grateful and we love our Roswell agents. So excited for today. And Kate, thank you so much for putting this on.
Value.
Great stuff. Great stuff. Thanks, Alec.
Here. It usually is down.
Good morning
here.
to you, Aaron D. Armis, down at the in-town office.
Good morning, everybody, especially my in-town agents. Kim and I love you all, and just excited to be physically back in the office again, as you can see, and to see a lot of you starting to come back in here too. It's feeling a little more pre-COVID, a little more energetic. So just super glad that you guys came to the class. I'm excited to hear what they have to say about appraisals. I think that's probably the craziest part of our crazy market right now. So glad you all could make it. Thank you.
Thank you, Aaron. And in Decatur at the Metro Atlanta office, Ann Falconer.
Good morning, everybody, and good morning to all the Decatur peeps out there. I'm excited that we can put this class on, and I wanted to just give a shout out to Kathy Vitale because she was behind getting this all organized for all of us to be able to participate. So thank you, Kathy. And I'm really excited about the topic because, as Aaron said, it is a crazy market. And I think this is going to be a great, great CE class. So thank you.
Thank you, Ann. And we've got Jim Shue up in Alpharetta at the North Atlanta office.
Good morning, my KWNA teammates and family. It is so great to see you. We're so excited to present this topic. Other than why my credit score doesn't match my Credit Karma, this is the #1 topic going round and round in our team meetings and in the office. So we're excited to present this to you. We're all attending so we can learn some of the nuances with you as well. So enjoy.
Love it, love it. And last but not least, one of our key sales managers, one of our first loan officers in a KW office, Nancy Grieve. Good morning, Nancy.
Good morning, crowd. I'm so excited to be affiliated with the professionals at Shelter, but also all the professionals, real estate agents in the offices. So I hope that you'll learn lots. We all will learn lots today. And then just make sure that you know we are an extension of your team. So if you need anything, we can help in any way. Just please reach out to your amazing loan officers.
Thank you, Nancy. Thank you, Shelter team. We're going to get out of the way now and let you get to the business of understanding more about values in this crazy market. But just please know how grateful we are for the partnership and the relationship. And we're here for you whenever you need us. So let me turn it back over, or maybe introduce to some of you who joined late, Kate Merrihew with DS Murphy. Good morning, Kate, and welcome.
Good morning, y'all. Thank you so much to Shelter Mortgage and all our KW friends for having us this morning. It is great to be here. And I just want to say, if you are not understanding the values in this crazy market, we're going to try to help this morning. But let me tell you, we're all in this together and we're all having a fun ride, aren't we, right now? It's been very interesting lately. So I really want to urge you all. I know there's a bunch of people in this class this morning, which may make you feel a little intimidated to speak out or to ask questions, but please use the raise hand function on Zoom. Send us a chat. We got John Allred here this morning. He's another DS Murphy appraiser. He's going to be taking care of the chat unless I see it and I can quickly answer while I'm teaching. But John will take care of all of your questions in the chat, or I'll address it in the class if it's pertinent to what we're talking about. And then also on YouTube, we have Curtis Banks is with us, and he's another DS Murphy appraiser. And he'll be able to help you with any of your questions as well. Please feel free to reach out. We really want this class to feel interactive. Zoom can get a little laborious. I'm sure you all know what I'm talking about. We've been living our lives on the computer for the last year. But I want y'all to feel like this is interactive, that you can ask questions, that you can participate, because I don't want anybody falling asleep. You know, maybe we need a dance break. I don't know. I'm just saying, I want everybody to have a good old time with this and come out of it with a little extra something. So welcome. First, we'll talk a little bit about me, a little bit about DS Murphy, and a little bit about what we're going to be doing in the class. And then after we do that, just to give everybody a little bit more time to get in, because I know we have a bunch of people joining us, we're going to do the sign-in as a group to make sure that everybody understands the process and to make sure that everybody gets that CE credit. Again, to reiterate, John put it in the chat, but if you want CE credit for this class, you are going to need to keep your cameras on. It is a requirement through Georgia, through the state, to get your CE that you keep your camera on at all times. If you need to take a quick break, run and get some coffee, jumping jacks, whatever you need to do, that's totally fine. Just turn your video off for a second. That's okay. Just for the general 3 hours, we need to keep your camera running. All righty. I would also say, please make sure that your name on your chat window, on your Zoom window, matches the name on your real estate license. So if there is any issue with the sign-in, we can double check your name against your sign-in. So if you need to do that, you just go up into the right corner of your box, click rename, and change your name on your Zoom box to match your real estate license. That would just help us out with the whole process. So again, we're going to introduce a little bit, and then we will get to the sign-in. I promise we will do it together. Nobody's going to be left out. We put it a few slides in because sometimes we have people that get kicked out and come back in and have technical difficulties. So we'll just go ahead and get rolling with some of the first slides here to introduce. So you are in the right place if you are trying to understand this crazy market, understand values in the crazy market. A little bit about me, just so you know, if you have specific directed questions. I am a certified residential appraiser. I've been with DS Murphy for about 6.5 years now. I have my BA from the University of Virginia and my MA from Marymount in architecture and design. So this is the market in general, real estate, return on investment, consultation appraisals. That's my big go-to. I really want everybody to get the best return on investment for selling their property and doing the best that they can with that. I specialize in town, City of Decatur and DeKalb County, but we do at DS Murphy have people that specialize in all areas. So if you're listening to this class saying, this appraiser only knows in town, we have John Allred and Curtis Banks here with us as well, and they are in different areas themselves. So we can always find somebody at DS Murphy to help you with whatever area you have questions about, but just so you know, for the purposes of this class, that's where I'm coming from. I am approved as an FHA appraiser. And then again, I'll say my bread and butter is the education team, consultation, and return on investment. A little bit about DS Murphy as a firm. So Scott Murphy, who you may or may not be familiar with, is the chairman of the Georgia Real Estate Appraisers Board, and he owns both DS Murphy and Associates as well as the Academy of Real Estate, and we have as well an inspections division. We have many firms across the nation and very experienced in geographic core competencies. So you'll hear later in the class how we talk about making sure that you have that geographic expertise for your area. And when you're understanding the crazy market, you know better than anybody that having that geographic expertise is going to be a really, really big deal. All right, so here's my contact information. YouTube, I hope no random people have joined and now have my phone number, but here you are. If you need it at any time, write it down. I will be posting it again later in the class. At DS Murphy, we really want to make a difference in understanding the relationships between agents, lenders, appraisers, and making sure that we are all understanding where everybody's coming from and verifying data together and just sharing our experiences so that we can have a more cohesive group. And so that we're not overvaluing or overinflating what we're thinking in terms of the crazy market. All right, so in this first hour of this class, or the first, I guess, 45 minutes at this point, we will take 2 breaks close to the hour. We're going to be working on these pinpoint bullet point ideas. We're going to work with some key vocabulary, CMAs versus appraisals, the factors affecting market value, market types, and then housing bubbles in red, because that's really starting to get into the meat of what we're talking about today. Crashes, housing bubbles, how did we get to where we are now? So that's what we're going to be talking about in hour 1. And now we get to where you're excited to get your CE credit. This is the screen I was promising. We will all sign in together. Maple, if you have anything specific that you want to say regarding this, go for it.
Yeah, I will go ahead and I will jump in right here. And we'll do a little bit of the housekeeping. Okay, so for CE, we do ask that you sign in. And the best way to do this is just to hold your cell phone up to your computer screen and let that camera app do its little job there with that QR code. And when you get into the website, you are going to put your name as it appears on your real estate license in the first field. The second field, you have the sign-in code, which is the 6-digit date, 050621, and then SM for Shelter Mortgage. And then you're going to put your real estate license in, just the numbers. And then the next field, it says appraiser number. This course also qualifies for CE for appraisers. But if you're not an appraiser, don't worry about it. Just leave the field blank. You are going to go ahead and put in your email, and then you will press next and submit. The form is going to refresh. You do not need to do it twice. If you get red letters, something went wrong, don't worry. I will receive an email. I will reach out to you and say, hey, we're all good, or say, I need this piece of information from you. So you only need to do it one time. You're just going to put your name in, the course code, the 050621 SM. You're going to put your real estate license in, your email, press next, submit, and you are all done. We're just going to remind you one more time that you do have to have your video on. So you might want to find your video feed in that big, huge, giant gallery and make sure that you can see yourself. You can always message me in the chat. John Allred is also in the chat. He's also helping me out in there. And Curtis Banks is also helping out. So one of us will be able to see that. And if you are having a problem with, can you see me? Like if you can't find your video, just go ahead and ask us and we'll look around for you and say, oh yeah, we can see your video. If you're having tech issues, go ahead, reach out to me. I'm probably going to be the one best to help you with the tech issues. Sometimes with Zoom, it's just better just to get completely out and come completely back in again. Use that link that Zoom emailed you when you put your name in right before you joined. Let's see, any other housekeeping? Did I forget anything, Kate?
That seems to cover it all.
Cover it, yeah. Let's see. One last thing, we do have the YouTube going today. So if you are, if you are somebody that's just here for knowledge, or you've got a showing, or you've got something going on today and you're on the move and you're here to listen, you can't say the whole class, guess what? We have it running on YouTube today. So you can go ahead and go on over there if you're not here for CE. If you are here for CE, please stay inside the Zoom. We do have Kate spotlighted because one of my issues was like, man, I don't want my video showing up on YouTube. So don't worry, only Kate's showing up. So you guys don't have to worry about it. It's just her, so.
And again, to reiterate, I see a couple questions in the chat about the sign-in. If it goes back to the screen that you started on, you did it right. We have it set up that way so that when we are in person for classes at some point in the hopeful near future, we can pass around an iPad for signing in so that it resets for the next person to sign in. So I'm sorry if that's a little bit confusing, but once you sign in, you will, and you've done it correctly, you will go back to that first screen you were on.
And I'm going to go, I'll post the YouTube streaming link again if somebody wanted to jump over to YouTube instead. Let's see. Is that the link that was asked? Okay. All right. I will go ahead and head over to the chat now and answer questions, and we'll let you get started, Kate.
Great. Maple, are you going to be posting a list?
Yes, I will definitely post a list. It'll be a nice long list today. It'll probably be in 3 sections because Zoom will only let me chat or post like a list of 20 or 30 at a time. So.
All right. So if anybody's having a moment where they're worried that the CE sign-in didn't work, just give Maple a few minutes, 15, 20 minutes, and she will start posting a list of people's names in the chat. And that's your verification that your CE sign-in went through. If you don't see your name on that list, send her a quick private message and she'll help you get it worked out. But for right now, we'll just get rolling. All right. Here we go. All right, so why are we here? Why am I here? We're not just your appraisal valuation consultants. I know that you saw on my sign-in, on my introduction, that it says consultation. That's what we really want you to leave here thinking. We are your consultants. We're here to work with you because we believe that firmly that knowledgeable agent is a successful agent. And if you have questions and you feel like you're not understanding the appraisal process or something within the market, and you feel like somebody at DS Murphy might be able to help you with your questions, send us a message. The firm believes that relationship should be guarded no matter what. So next time my email pops out, if you didn't write it down again. Send me a message. I have people from my classes always sending messages when they have questions pop up, because you really need to make sure that this community stands out amongst the competition and can really work together to verify data and just make sure that you're at the top of your game. That's what we want for everybody. All right, so what is an appraisal? I hope that this isn't a very new question to you. I'm sure you've seen an appraisal before, but just to reiterate, in case you didn't know the direct definition, an appraisal is an unbiased, being the main word, estimate of market value. It's the most probable sales price based on the analysis of subject property using 3 approaches to value. Again, that depends on what kind of appraisal you're doing, but the 3 approaches to value are sales comparison, cost, and income approaches. We put unbiased in red, big red letters up there, because it's really important to understand that as appraisers, we're coming in and we're trying to give an unbiased opinion. And one way that I occasionally refer to it is we're there to be the ones that you can throw under the bus. We're there to be the ones that have to tell your client the unfortunate truth about the value of the home, or we give you the appraisal and you can tell them the happy truth about the value of their home. But it's an unbiased estimate. We don't have a dog in the fight. We are coming in there and we're trying to help you understand what the market's doing right now from, again, unbiased place. It's a fun little cartoon we like to hope get you chuckling to start off of. So you're wondering the value of my home, you mean right now or a few seconds ago when you asked the question? I hope that's making some of you laugh, because if you're in the business right now, just blink and the value's changed. So I'm glad we're all here today to chat about it. A little bit about appraiser licensing, because sometimes we go into this class and we might not know what it takes to be an appraiser. So in 1991, the appraisal subcommittee for the federal government required states to license appraisers. Most states have either 2 or 3 tiers. Some states do not have licensed appraisers, but Georgia has the following tiers of appraisal. First, you'd have a registered trainee, and that's generally less than 2 years of experience. Licensed is generally 1 to 3 years of experience, and certified is generally 3 or more years of experience. Then you can get into certified residential or certified general when you're doing commercial. Anybody that's going to be signing your reports, if it's for a lender, is going to be a certified appraiser. Or if it's a trainee or a licensed appraiser, they're going to have a certified appraiser they're working with that's making sure to run all of their information by them. So we have a big mentor program all appraisal licensing is going to work under the mentor program. But within DS Murphy, we really stress partnerships and working together to understand the market and understand the appraisal world through the eyes of somebody who's been doing it a lot longer. So I personally trained under about 3 different people at DS Murphy and got a nice range of approaches. And I think, again, to reiterate, it's really important to be sharing information to really get the best understanding and be the top of your game. The Georgia appraiser licensing to be registered, it's 90 hours of initial qualifying education. Most people now are doing that online. You do have to take little tests here and there to get that registration. But then once you get that, you can work under a mentor and become licensed. It's an additional 60 hours of coursework as well as 2,000 hours of experience under a mentor. And you can't do that in less than 12 months. So nobody can be fast tracked to license. That's great because it really gives you a holistic approach to how long it takes to understand the market through that whole year. What does it look like in January? What does it look like right before schools start? What do sales look like all throughout the year? To be certified, you've got to have an additional 50 hours of coursework as well as 2,500 total hours of experience under a mentor. And that you can't do that any quicker than 2 years. So you're going to need to have at least 2 to 3 years of experience watching that housing market change through the year, from year to year, and through the year itself. So January to December, just getting to know how that works out. And then there's a long proctored exam to get licensed or certified. So that's just a little bit about how to become an appraiser so that you know where we're coming from. Some key terms we're going to be talking about today. To appraise is to set a value or to estimate the worth of a home. In the residential case, commercial case, obviously not a home. Value is a numerical quantity measured or signed or computed. So we really want to keep that to understanding that it's a numerical quantity. It isn't a larger term than that. So price is going to be the amount that somebody asks for their home. And then sales price is the monetary price which a buyer and a seller agree upon for the purchase or sale of their home. However, estimated fair market value is the estimate of the market value based on what a knowledgeable, willing, and typically motivated buyer would pay. And then on the other side of that, you want to make sure that it's a knowledgeable, willing, and unpressured seller in the real estate market. So we really want to understand that nobody's being unduly pushed to either buy or sell in this situation. It needs to be what a typical buyer or a typical seller would do without being motivated in one way or the other. All right, so CMAs versus appraisals. Raise your hand if you don't have to use the raise hand function, just literally raise it. Raise your hand if you have done a CMA. Yep, I'm sure most of you have done a CMA. If you're an appraiser, you can raise your hand if you've done an appraisal. If you're an agent, don't raise your hand. Again, an appraisal is an unbiased opinion done by an appraiser. So we just want you all to understand that some of the things that we're doing align very closely. For CMAs and appraisals, we're following the 3-step process, whichever one you do. You're going to do research, field work, and then you're going to write up a report. And that's going to look different for every client, for an agent or for an appraiser, because there's different needs for every client. If I'm doing an appraisal for Fannie Freddie or lenders, it's going to look different than a consultation appraisal. If you're doing a CMA for a client who just wants to see 1 page of numbers and just needs a quick overview, that's going to look very different than that client that we all have at some point that's going to want 20 pages of pie charts and graphs and to fully understand the market that they're listing their house in. So it's really important that we understand that though the CMAs and appraisals are different, they're both a 3-step process where we're doing the same 3 steps. Brokers and agents are going to suggest a range or a list price, but good to understand that that is a value range, because appraisers are going to extract an appraised value. It's that unbiased opinion of value. And again, we're interpreting the market. Appraisers are also under something called USPAP. It's the Uniform Standards of Professional Appraisal Practices that dictates our competency. So I touched on the word geographic expertise earlier, and I think it's important to understand that part of that competency is geographic expertise. Raise your hand, literally, if you've ever had an appraiser come to see your home that you're selling and they aren't from anywhere around the area and you feel like they have no idea what they're doing. I'm sure we have a few of you. Yeah. Raise your hand if you feel much, much better when the appraiser that arrives to do the appraisal is from the general area, knows the school district, knows that you're walkable to the best restaurant spots in the best commercial areas. That's the appraiser I want. That's the one I want showing up at my door. So we definitely want to make sure that we're having that competency. And if we don't know the area super well, there are ways to get that competency, ways to learn the area and gain the knowledge that we need to. But overall, it's really important to have that geographic expertise, especially right now with the market. And certified appraisers have years of experience in training. There's an art and a science to sort of that push and pull on everything. Let's see, the next is, you might have this question, but you probably don't, because I'm sure you're aware. Do real estate values always increase over time? You can go ahead and take a moment and put it in the chat. What do you think is the answer to this question? Do real estate values always increase over time? Paul, I like it. Paul, quick with typing, I like it. He says no. Everybody's saying no, not always, no. You guys are on top of it. I like it. I like it. All right, no. Values increase and decrease over time based on factors listed above, much like the stock market. They increase and decrease over time. Seeing a little wave. These are some factors that affect value. Consistency. What do we think we mean by consistency? Use the chat. What does everybody think we mean by consistency as a factor that affects value? Who's quick draw McGraw over here? Steven says comparables. Yep, consistency. What about that steadiness, trends, similar homes? Yeah, John says similar homes. Thanks, John. So what about that bungalow in a sea of mega mansions? What about the mega mansion in the sea of bungalows? That is a factor of consistency. You know, are the homes in the area similar? That mega mansion in a sea of bungalows is not going to be worth as much as that mega mansion in a sea of mega mansions. So you need to follow that factor of consistency when you're looking at everything. Also, condition and appeal. That's a pretty easy one. Specifically right now with lumber prices and everybody who needs a handyman or a contractor, and they're 3 months out from even being able to meet with you because of everybody remodeling and doing things right now. You're seeing that condition is a huge factor for everybody. They are wanting to come into a house that doesn't need a lot of work. And it just generates the overall appeal, primary bathrooms, kitchens. These are really driving these values. Quality, obviously, better the quality. Construction and layout. How many times have you heard the words open floor plan? That's a big one that we've seen for years and years and years. I love an open floor plan. It's construction, it's layout. Is it a thoughtful design? This is a factor that affects value. Location, for sure. Location, that one should be at the top. Am I right? Proximity to commercial, that's kind of falls under location as well. And then supply and demand. And supply and demand is a huge one we're going to be talking about today, because a lot of you are probably working in areas where there's low supply and high demand right now. So, you know, that really is affecting the values. Again, I'll reiterate, I'm in City of Decatur where I live in, and I work a lot in City of Decatur in the Decatur area. And that's a huge thing right now. The supply and demand, there are people trying to get into the school district and there aren't enough houses. And so houses are going up, 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 up in value. So for sure, this is a factor that affects value. All right. Andrea says, I'm going to occasionally look down at the chat just to make sure we're all staying on the same page. Andrea says, what's the best way to ask the appraiser how familiar they are with the area without sounding condescending or offensive? That's a really good question. John says, as an appraiser, I typically ease minds by mentioning the local schools. That's a really, I like what John says because I think that's really important to also not put the agent in a position, as an appraiser, in a position to feel like they need to find out how much we know about the area. I think it is very important as an appraiser to show up and say, oh yeah, you know, I live 2 miles away, or, oh, I love the Oak Grove School District, the Oak Grove Elementary School. You know, it's really driving prices right now. People love that school. You know, it is good to mention to ease the fears, but what is the best way to ask if they're familiar without sounding condescending or offensive is just to say, you know, I've had a couple of people say to me directly, how many appraisals have you done in this area recently? That's not a great way, but just to start a very sort of colloquial conversation by saying, you know, houses in this area have been doing really well lately because of the school down the street. Do you know it well? You know, just kind of slowly working it into conversation and seeing, you know, how they react to that. And typically an appraiser is going to say, oh yeah, you know, this elementary school seems to be a driver, or, you know, I try to stay basically within the high school because all the elementary schools around here are good. So just kind of slowly working it into conversation is a good idea. And John says, so as an agent, you can reverse that, ask general questions and feel out the feedback. So I think John and I are on the same page with that, which is good. All right, so value is driven by buyers and sellers, which we sort of started to touch on just then. What is important to the typical buyer? That's a very general question, but we will also want to know what features do they expect in a property. Take a minute to just put in the chat right now so that everybody can kind of see what is important to your typical buyers right now. What are you seeing buyers wanting right now besides the typical, you know, updated kitchen, updated primary bath? Throw them out there. What are some things that your clients are looking for? Ed says move-in ready, quartz or granite, outdoor space, pools. Outdoor space and pools, that's not one I was seeing 2 years ago as much. You know, these are things that are popping up right now. Spacious rooms, specific areas. I'm just reading out what you guys are putting in there. Finished basements, open floor plans. You guys are all working in different areas of this market, and you're seeing similar things. And obviously, you know, in your market, you're going to see specific things that others might not see, but it's good for everybody to see what page we're all on. This is updated kitchen, new cabinets, granite. Yeah. Okay, what are buyers willing to pay a premium for? Again, they are driving those values. So let's take a minute to describe the home's market value. This picture is a kitchen with certain finishes. And when you look at this picture, what are your initial thoughts? What are you thinking? What does it bring to mind if you were to walk into this kitchen? What are you thinking about it? Outdated, dated, outdated, clutter, outdated. Yep, you get the point. Is this different and why? Ashley says well lit. Pallavi says more modern. Yep, it's looking like they probably have the granite countertops. The cabinets are newer. Stainless steel appliances. Yep, it's decluttered. Okay, now what about this? Mari says gorgeous. Kathy says, oh, nice. Primo upgrade, willing to pay more, right? So if you have a client that says they want an updated kitchen, they might mean they definitely don't mean the one on the far left. They might mean the one in the middle, and they might mean the one on the right. And that's going to be a difference of what is your buyer willing to pay the premium for? Are they a chef? Are they do they entertain a lot? Do they have a lot of money? What are we working with? You know, an updated kitchen like the one in the middle might be enough for them because that's a nice kitchen. That's updated, it's open, it's lovely. But then the third one is like somebody that's going to be cooking, somebody that's going to be entertaining. And it just knowing what somebody's working for to be able to describe that home's market value. What are they looking for? What can they pay a premium for? And who determines market value? Buyers and sellers, that's right. Buyers and sellers determine the market values. Appraisers, we interpret market value. We do not set market value. There is nothing that we do as appraisers that is affecting what the market is doing. And if there is, we're not doing our job right. So I'm gonna say across the board, we're only interpreting market value. We are seeing what buyers and sellers are doing right now. And we're letting everybody know, you know what, this is where you fall within this trend. Okay, buyers have emotions. Truer words have not been spoken, am I right? Framing the home purchase around the holidays and events, imagining social gatherings with neighbors, envisioning how the home will be decorated, looking for a place to create new memories. This is your bread and butter. As agents, you know these things about a typical buyer. You know how your client is going to be. And you know that when somebody sees a home for the first time that they can envision themselves in, it's a much different experience than seeing a home and having a reaction where they just kind of are inward to themselves. This is your bread and butter. This is what you're good at. But knowing what emotions these different aspects are going to trigger are going to help you with this, with these market values. And again, that pool. So before we can talk about the impact of the external market forces on the housing market, i.e. the crazy market that we are referring to in this class, we need to know what a normal market looks like. So you need to know your market type. The balanced market is enough demand for buyers to equal the supply from sellers. The sellers that produce the supply and the buyers produce the demand. Pretty straightforward, but obviously setting our standard for, if we're not attaining this, that's when we get a crash or a bubble or, these other aspects that we'll be talking about. So it all comes down to the law of supply and demand, as we were saying. It explains the interaction between sellers of a resource and buyers for that resource. And it defines what affects the relationship between the availability of a particular product and the demand for that product and what it has on price. Generally, low supply and high demand means increased price and vice versa. So right now, I think in most markets, I could say across the board, we're seeing low supply and high demand. Raise your hand or put in the chat if you're not seeing that in your market and what market you're in. Just because I would like to look into that market and kind of understand why that's a little different than what we're seeing in general in the Atlanta area right now. But if you are seeing this, raise your hand literally and show everybody. If you are seeing low supply, high demand, you're not alone. You're not alone. All right, so here's a lovely little YouTube clip for you all. Let's see if I can get it rolling.
Waiters always look at me and think that I'm going to have a little salad, maybe a soup, and that'll be the whole meal. And when I do my,
Okay.
excuse me, is that
The
apple
video's
for
not
sale?
playing. You're probably
Yeah,
gonna
we're
wanna
about to
click
put it on
on-
sale right now, actually.
Hold
Well,
on.
I'm in the market.
What's up?
You're probably gonna want to click on the blue link.
I did.
Because I'm still seeing the PowerPoint slide.
Okay.
And open it up in the browser.
Yeah. It's open on mine, so I didn't know you couldn't see it. So hold on one second.
Oh, you probably shared the PowerPoint and not shared the whole computer screen.
Yep.
We can always come back to it at break.
Okay. Yeah, I'll come back to it break. That's probably the best.
Easy solution.
We were running a little late anyway. I'll put it on at break so everybody can see it. But yeah, it's just a fun little YouTube clip about the market right now and how quick it's changing. And we'll play that in a sec. Let's see.
Excuse me.
Oh, there it goes.
There it goes.
Yeah, we're about to put it on sale right now, actually. Well, I'm in the market, so tell me about your apple. Why should I buy it? Nice try. Okay, people, here's how this is going to work. I have an apple here. The highest bidder's going home with this. I want all bids in the next 2 minutes, then we're closing it. Bidding starts at $5. Feeling pretty confident there, huh? I mean, don't you think? $10. He said starting at 5. 15. Is this a new apple? Yeah, just listed. I'm pre-qualified. I'll pay cash. I got cash. 20, 30, 40. No, just make it 45. Is it even worth that? 50. I don't know. Please, this is the 8th apple I've tried to buy. Could I at least see it up close? Nope, it's an apple. You know what it is. You either want it or you don't. I'll take it for 100. What? I'm from California. It's the cheapest apple I've ever seen. It was 120. Why did I do that? Why? I don't. I want to be there, baby.
Okay. I saw in the chats a lot of people had said they'd seen this video already, but we just wanted to get everybody laughing a little bit for a second. But yeah, it is a crazy market right there. Trying to look at the chat right now. I know John is doing a great job answering everybody's questions. Yeah, if anybody has any questions, feel free to keep putting them in the chat. John is doing an awesome job answering all those questions. So right now we're talking about how the housing market may experience a bubble. Again, just to reiterate, it experiences a bubble. It does not exist in a bubble. Factors that may create or pop a bubble at the national, state, and local level are laws and regulations, financial policy, economic health, tons of unforeseen factors that can affect property values, COVID-19. Unemployment, natural disasters, interest rates, increase or lack of inflation. So here's some additional factors that affect home value: pre-foreclosure and short sales. Then we have our real estate owned properties, REO, and foreclosed properties. Corporate headquarters or relocations. Some of what we're seeing right now with relocations is very interesting to the current market because we are seeing less people commuting. And when a corporation is going to relocate and they end up buying houses for relocations, it's just kind of setting up a different stance for everybody because people are living at their homes now. They're not going into work. So we're seeing these factors even different today in 2021, whereas corporate headquarters and relocations 3 years ago was creating making a different factor that affected home values. Private equity home buys, I saw a lot of that between 2011 and 2012. There's a crazy statistic that something like there's one zip code in Atlanta where 90% of the home sales, about 7,500 home sales, about 90% of those 7,500 home sales in 2011 and 2012 were bought by private equity. So sometimes when you research a home and you kind of see what its listing history was, and you're looking between 2011 and 2012, you'll see, in some parts of Atlanta, private equity owns a bunch of those homes. You also have the quantitative easing, which is where, the central banks come in and they help out. And then COVID-19, And this is one I'm sure we're going to talk about a lot in this class because it's very prominent and it's very in the forefront of your minds right now because it's affecting everything that you're working with from day to day. When we were just talking a second ago, people were saying, I was asking what factors are you seeing people looking for in the market? And a lot of people said outdoor living space, pools, you know, and before COVID-19, in some of my classes, somebody would ask me, what is a pool always positive? And I still can't say ownership of a pool is always a positive factor. But today, as opposed to 2 years ago, it's more across the board a positive factor. It's more of it has more contributory value than it ever has. Outdoor living space has more contributory value. You're seeing areas with a deck, a patio, a porch, a fire pit. They're delineating space in a completely different way where you're analyzing outdoor living space similarly to the indoor living space. So all of these additional factors that are affecting home value, we're going to be talking about throughout this class, which is great because we are coming up to our first break in a sec. This is just some of our information. If you need to contact DS Murphy, if you have an area that you have questions about and you don't know which appraiser to reach out to, you can always email the office, dsmaoffice@dsmurphy.com, so that you can, they can find the best avenue for you to ask that question. So it is noon right now. I'm going to leave up this slide so that you can take down any of this information if you need to use it at all. We are going to go until 12:10. Feel free to turn your video off for this 10-minute break. Do what you need to do. Grab a coffee, take a stretch, go for a 8-minute stroll, do what you got to do. And we'll see everybody back at 12:10. If my video is on, I'm still here and I can answer questions. John Allred is also in the chat answering questions. So please reach out. And it's been a good first hour. We'll see you guys at 12:10.
And we also have Curtis Banks at YouTube. So you can always get into the YouTube and have another appraiser answer questions too.
All right, it is 12:10, but we will give everybody, since it's a large class, a minute or two to come back from their break. But we are here and we are back and rolling in a second. So come on back whenever you can. Somebody in the chat mentioned what the zip code was that I was referring to. My reference was to an article in the Atlantic. And they didn't reference the zip code. Chances are they weren't allowed to. So they didn't reference the zip code. They just said a zip code in Atlanta with 7,500 sales is responsible for 90% ownership by private equity. There's a bunch of articles out there that are really interesting on the topic. Wall Street Journal wrote one called, Why Does Private Equity Own My Home? There's a lot of great articles about the topic if you want to look into it, but particularly in the Atlanta area, there's a few articles. I can maybe put up links to some of them. But yeah, if you just Google private equity ownership, most of the stuff that you're going to see is between 2010, 2011, 2012, when everything starts to get bought up. Chris says, I've read that more of the private equity buying is starting up again. I'm seeing it a little bit, not nearly to the degree of 2011, 2012 area. Anybody else want to weigh in on that? Chris says that he's read that more private equity buying is starting up again. Mari says, not me, not these prices. All right, it is 12:12. So hopefully everybody has had a chance to get back on that wants to. So we'll continue into our next section. In hour 2, we're going to be talking about reading markets. A couple of the bullet points that we're going to hit on is this is not 2008. We're going to be talking about understanding economic cycles, national and metro statistics, local data resources, and appreciation. We put that in red because that's what we're dealing with here. What is the appreciation? What are we seeing? And understanding when we say this is not 2008, when we first start off, we're going to be talking about why does this bubble look a little bit different? What are the factors that set the putsch in motion in 2008? All right, so starting with this is not the year 2008, the crash, if you will. Let's take a look at what happened, the repercussions, and the preventative measures that were put into place. And there are quite a few of them. You might be familiar with some of them, you might not. Hour 2, like I just mentioned, we really are looking at a lot of statistics, a lot of national and metro statistics, as well as talking about stats in 2008. So put on your math caps. If I were talking to my 5-year-old, I would say make sure to put your listening ears on because this one's a little heavier than hour 1. So yeah, if you have questions, again, put them in the chat. Because we're going to throw up a lot of statistics. We're going to throw up a lot of charts. We can send links to where we found these charts. It's also on each slide where the charts were found. So if you want to do a deeper dive into what we're going to be talking about, or you want to see it a little closer up, feel free to put the link in your browser and pull it up yourself if you're having more questions. Because sometimes I know when it's on a little bit of a smaller screen, you might not dive into the trends as much as you'd be able to pull it up for yourself. So let's look again at 2008, we were just talking about. Here's a little infographic, a few cracks in the basement, but otherwise structurally sound. Check out all the defaults. All right. So how did the mortgage system fail? U.S. housing peaked in 2006 nationally. In 2007, that's where we saw the biggest peak in the Atlanta area. But by 2008, it had decreased 20%, and a large percentage of homeowners found themselves underwater. I'm sure you all have seen The Big Short or any of these critically acclaimed films in the last few years. People are understanding what happened in 2008 more and more, and wrapping their heads around why we can't let something like that happen again. A lot of mortgage fraud. These are some of the things that led to what happened. The demand for mortgage-backed securities resulted in predatory lending. The lax regulation of lending standards, issuing loans and knowing the borrower couldn't afford it. In the appraisal world, we'll talk about it in a second, there was a lot of backwards ethics. Appraisers were appraising properties for a value that was dictated to them. They were working hand in hand with lenders in not the way that I'm suggesting we do today. It wasn't an unbiased value of opinion because, you know, frankly, the standards weren't set yet. There weren't the regulations in place, and, you know, they're throwing out values willy-nilly, and then everybody's, you know, you get a house and you get a house, and not making sure that those houses are actually worth what they're putting their money behind. Securitization, creating tradable bonds composed of bank loans. That was one of the major reasons for the failure. The shadow banking system, not subjected to the same regulations as the depository banks. Subprime mortgages, adjustable rate mortgages, interest only. That it was known for the higher risk of default, and that's what happened. You're getting these subprime mortgages for low credit scores, you know, under 6 to 640, and you're giving these people mortgages that are for these homes that they can't afford. They're definitely going to default. And all of these things are happening at one time that's creating this untenable system. Appreciation above inflation, housing entering a bubble where home values exceeded the rate of inflation. So you're creating, again, this untenable system where you're gonna have to where the government is gonna have to come in and regulate a little bit so that we don't find ourselves falling backwards. So there were many changes that happened following the financial crisis of 2008. The Emergency Economic Stabilization Act, AKA the bailout. And you all have heard of a lot of bailouts specifically related to COVID, economic issues from, you know, 2020, 2021 right now. But this is different. This was a much, much bigger financial crash in terms of as it applies to the housing market. In 2009, Fannie Mae changed their appraisal requirements, which I wholeheartedly support. As I was mentioning, when you weren't having these, when you didn't have these requirements, you were having relationships that weren't unbiased. They were advocacy relationships where they were advocating for making these loans on homes that should not have gotten them. There was no verification. Nobody was accountable. In 2009, they adjusted the parameters. They started saying, and I'm sure you're familiar with some of the parameters that are thrown out nowadays are different than they were in 2009. It has scaled back a little bit, but in 2009 was the first time they came out and they said that you must have 2 sales within 90 days or 2 active or pending sales. This has scaled back a little bit to today. You definitely need to have 1 sale within 90 days and 1 active or pending sale. But before 2009, nobody was saying any of that. And so, you know, you weren't having to account for your unbiased opinion as well. Supervisory requirements were also made in 2009. You heard me talk earlier about becoming licensed and certified. The supervisor must accompany the trainee on every inspection. That was what was put on by Fannie Mae back in 2009. And that has also scaled back a little bit in that the supervisor doesn't need to accompany the trainee, physically go with them on inspections, as long as they can either, depending on the experience of the trainee, see the house on their own at another time, or look over their work, verify their work. Because the thing about the supervisor and the certified appraiser in that situation is they are as liable for the valuation as the trainee. So they need to make sure that they can verify all of that. And again, we have, you know, I say this tongue in cheek, we have 2008 to thank for all of this. It put all of these parameters and requirements in place so that moving forward, even if we scale back a little bit, we still have parameters in place as appraisers, as financial institutions, government, where we're ready, you know, hopefully we're buckled up to be able to take on a bubble in a more responsible manner, I guess. FHA requires certified appraisers. That's a 2009 thing. Also, the 2010 Dodd-Frank Wall Street Reform and Consumer Protection Act. That is a mouthful. Most of you are familiar, if you're familiar with it, just know it as Dodd-Frank. That's known as one of the biggest things during the Obama administration. And some rollbacks have occurred. There were a few pushes in 2017 and 2018 to roll back some of the legislation with Dodd-Frank, but 2017 did not go through, and 2018 is just a slight reform. Most of the major reforms are still in place. I wanted to pull up some of the reforms so that you guys, with Dodd-Frank, just understanding sort of some of the tenets of it. The main ones being transparency, consolidation of regulatory agencies, comprehensive regulation of financial markets, transparency of derivatives being a big one. We just want to have the tools in place for financial crisis to make the right decisions when we find ourselves in a bubble, when we find ourselves in this quote unquote crazy market, because 2008 did bring up a lot of stuff. And then at the bottom, you'll see COVID-19 is having an impact on appraisals too. And then we'll get to this later. I mean, it's very much the forefront of all of our minds, I know. And so we'll keep bringing it up. So when we're talking about housing economic cycles in general, let's look at some data. We start by looking at overall trends, and then we're going to be looking at overall trends for the United States, the whole United States, not just the metro Atlanta area. Keep in mind, these overall trends may not match Atlanta, they may not match your market, they may not match Georgia, but right now we're just looking at overall trends for the United States. Later, we're going to see sort of the national trends comparatively with the metro area trends. Here are some of our sources. If you want to take a quick screenshot of that, if you're looking for any of these, the National Association of Home Builders, National Association of Realtors, and then the Dow Jones Indices, Case-Shiller Home Price Indices, Black Knight Inc., good place for mortgage data. So again, as we talked about, you know, we're talking about a cycle, so clearly it's going to go up and down and return. And we talked about how values don't just increase over time. Right now, when we're looking at overall trends, when you see expansion, you're going to see increased new construction to meet demand. And we're going to look at statistics in a second of how there was a bunch of new construction before the crash, specifically in the Atlanta area. And then the boom, when it's considered a seller's market or a boom, it's a lot of times is driven by FOMO. It's that fear of missing out. It's, oh my gosh, everybody's buying right now. Interest rates are, good, and everybody's looking for outdoor living space, and I'm going to miss out. I'm not buying right now, and this is a great time to buy. So then that creates that seller's market, that boom, that FOMO created that. And then you have a recession when the supply surplus, when you get a supply surplus and the prices just start to drop and drop. And then a depression would be when you have low activity, and we're going to call that a buyer's market, because the prices have dropped and you're now at a place where you're all set. So how does the current market, we have this at the bottom, how does the current market match or does not match the overall trends? Go ahead and give me a little bit of an opinion in the chat if you have one. Do you feel like the current markets are matching these overall trends?
Or if you want to talk, we can also, you can raise your hands and we can give you the mic.
Yeah, that's fine too. A lot of people are saying no. Let's see. Darwin is saying boom. That's right. An extended boom. Yes, it's a crazy feeding frenzy, says Gerald. There's nearly not enough new construction to meet demand. Ultra low interest rates. Let's see. Add a pinnacle to the peak, says Scott. Yep. All right. So before we look at a bunch of statistics, it's important to remember that statistics are descriptive in nature and they tell us where we've been. The reason we have a picture of a rear view mirror right now is to remember that these statistics and statistics in general are not predictive, they're descriptive. They're talking about the things that we've seen and how to interpret what we've seen. And maybe you can use statistics to project what you might see in the future, but statistics by nature are descriptive, again, not predictive. So we want to make sure that we're looking at what has happened in the past. Again, similarly to talking about the crash of 2008, where have we been and how can it educate us moving forward? How can it get us in the mindset to not let something like this happen again, and to really understand where we are. John just answered, how do factors in the surplus of people moving to Atlanta with these trends? He says it multiplies the effect. Yep. And Mari notices that yes, and builders are jacking up prices when a deal has been made once it's finished due to the lumber prices. You guys are really noticing what's happening right now. So here we go. So these are transactions and house price index for Georgia in red. So Georgia is in red, what you're seeing, and the new private housing unit authority by the building permits. The building permits are in blue. So this is 1988. At the bottom, you'll see 1988 to March 2021. And you see around 2006 that you had kind of a peak. And this is referring to the new private housing units. The blue is for the new rising housing units. So if you're looking around 2008, what do you see happening with this? If you're looking around what we were just talking about, around the crash, what are you seeing with these numbers? And Maple just put up a link to this statistic if you want to look it up. The infographic is at the bottom too if you need to type it in. Go ahead and put it in the chat. What do you see in this trend around 2000? I would say 2008, starting around 2007 through 2012. Even just looking at the red and the blue, what do you see significantly happening, specifically with the red? Yep. Pamela says home building was greater than demand before 2008. Yep. Huge drop in permits, lack of construction, a dip. That's right. You're seeing a huge dip in that period because Georgia built a lot of new homes right before the crash. And you're seeing the production of new homes exceeding the buying of those new homes. And then all of a sudden the crash and you see everything dip. And as the red and the blue start to try to come together last year, we're starting to see things go back up in terms of that trend. Janice says doesn't say it here, but from my experience, the interest rate was double digits. And Marcy says, and construction has not bounced back the way sales have. I've seen a pretty good amount of new construction lately, but a lot of it is being hindered, like you said, by the lumber prices, and people are moving a little bit slower on some of those things because the older houses are selling too. So what is going on in the market right now? And that's what a lot of you all are talking about. So here's the Case-Shiller index that we're looking at. I'm sure you all have looked at the Case-Shiller indices before. And when we're looking at the red, we're looking at the Atlanta index versus the national index, which is the blue. So again, we're looking at a major crash, a major negative around the 2008 area. And then it dips back down, and it seems, and we're bringing it at around March 2021, we're coming in at when we ran these. We're seeing it start to incline again in this market. And again, if you are looking to find this yourself to do even more of a deep dive, you can see at the bottom, and Maple will put it in the chat. Okay. And then here's another indices of the Atlanta.
The same one. I accidentally, when I updated the graph, I accidentally duplicated the slide on you. Sorry.
Okay, totally fine. I was looking at it and I was like, I think this is the same one, just.
It's the same one,
together.
yeah. When I updated it, yep.
No biggie. Yeah, I looked at that earlier and I thought, I think it's just a smaller picture of the same thing. All right, so if we're looking at mortgage data, we have, and again, this is March 2021, so it's pretty current. We have a change in the delinquency rate, or the people that, aren't paying their mortgage. The delinquency rate is down 16.4%, which it fell nearly a percentage point. And that's, great. However, what does that mean for everything else? We have prepayment activity of is up 17.3%. Why do you feel like prepayment activity in this market is up? You can do it in the chat. You can unmute yourself. What do you think would be driving around this time? And again, this is March 2021 that we're looking at, but, reviewing kind of the time that we're in from 2020 to 2021, what's driving prepayment activity to be up? Chris says people concerned about job loss, people getting all the free money from the government and stocks, people selling their homes with equity, especially if they're negatively impacted by COVID financially. Again, there are a lot of reasons, but those are some great ones. Those are definitely some reasons. COVID has given everybody kind of a different way of viewing their financial futures. And, we want to go ahead and prepay because we don't know, when a vaccine's coming. We don't know what tomorrow will bring. So the seasonal home sales and refi activity would lock in before the rates would begin to rise. Also, we're seeing these super, super low interest rates, which, it isn't going to be sustainable. They aren't going to be hovering right around 3 forever. So, you're seeing a lot of prepayment activity. Then you're also seeing 28.2% in foreclosure starts. So this is those starts ticked up for the month. The number of active foreclosures fell to yet another record low in March. Why do you feel like this trend is something that we're seeing right now? You can go ahead and put it in the chat, or you can unmute yourself or raise your hand and we'll unmute you. Kimberly says forbearance, moratorium or evictions is coming to an end. I'm sure you all have opinions on this. Over to the side, you'll see that March saw a particularly steep drop in the national delinquency rate. primarily driven by the calendar, as both January and February ended on Sundays, leading to an even larger improvement than might normally be expected, what is historically the best month for mortgage performance. All right. And I'm seeing more answers. People are saying government banned foreclosures, lost jobs, government and COVID. That is what we're in for sure. That is the market we're in right now. So here's just a little bit more mortgage data. When you're looking at, sorry if I look like I'm looking up, my pictures are larger above me. So we're looking at the current status of COVID-19 related forbearances. And that's something you guys were talking about in the chat a little bit too, just making sure that you're understanding how these are kind of playing out. Active forbearance is this larger blue area here on the pie chart. And then removed or expired performing is 45% in the green. And then active forbearance, the original term, is the small blue, and the gray is going to be paid off. It's only 15%. So we're looking for the status of loans that have left COVID-19 related forbearance plans on the right. Again, things to note about, Lucky Kate, I'm squinting to see them, says Janet. I'm so sorry. It's I'm happy that I have it blown up here because I have a hard time seeing it on the small screen, but just the general understanding. And you can click on these links. You can go to do a deep dive later if numbers are your thing. Performance among borrowers is leaving their forbearance plans remain strong. Of the now 14% of all homeowners who have entered forbearance plans since the onset of the pandemic, 2/3 have since left forbearance. Some 45% of plan participants have left and are re-performing, while 1.07 million have left and have paid off their mortgages in full. As we were looking at some of those paid offs. The share of homeowners in post-forbearance loss mitigation increased along with exit volumes, but has begun to normalize as servicers work through waterfalls on recent exits. As of April 20th, there are now 160,000 high-risk forbearance exits who have left their plans, are not in loss mitigation, and remain delinquent. That said, more than 100,000 of those borrowers were already delinquent headed into the pandemic. So this is just a little bit, again, about the forbearance activity. And if you want to dive into it deeper, I can put this link up in the chat for everybody. But it's just getting you to start wrapping your head around the numbers of how COVID-19 has put us in the position that we are in now in looking at the market. This is the state-by-state rankings. Again, you'll see the arrow on the side pointing you towards Georgia, and the delinquency rate being about 6.4%. The national average is 5 right now, so we're doing pretty well in terms of delinquent and foreclosure. Let's see, the year-to-year change has been 31%. So what are my local resources? If you want to know specifically about your market and how it is faring in the bigger picture, these are the resources that you're going to want to tap into. Builders and developers. We've already mentioned builders a little bit specifically as it applies to a couple of people mentioned lumber costs, but what is that new construction looking like? How does the lumber cost fare? And how are the builders and developers seeing everything going right now? And then multiple listing services, your local resource for all things agents. And we as appraisers use multiple listing services a lot as well. One thing to remember, especially in this market right now, is please, please, please take a minute to put everything in MLS. We're not finding sales if they're not in a multiple listing service. We don't have a way to go out and look for that if it isn't in a multiple listing service. And it's helping everybody to really understand the trends and what's happening right now if you make sure that all of your listings are going into MLS. And then build relationships with appraisers. I start to sound like I'm on a soapbox about this, but you definitely want to make sure that you're protecting these relationships with appraisers so that, you know, you have somebody to go to if you are in an area where you feel like, you know, I've been keeping up with this, but this house is eluding me. What's happening here? Can I run it by my appraiser friend and get a little jolt into how my understanding is wrapped around? And then comp flow, we mentioned this because this is something that appraisers use on a day-to-day basis just to verify that data. Again, when we say build relationships with appraisers, part of that and part of which what I've mentioned before is just having that verifiable data. Comp flow, I don't know, raise your hand if you're familiar with comp flow, if you've ever heard of it or used it. DS Murphy, we use it a lot. And one of the reasons that we use comp flow a lot is that it's shared appraisal data, but it has all ethical information redacted. So we're not seeing valuation information. We're not seeing anybody's personal information. We're seeing information that's shareable ethically, such as plat maps, numbers, trends, and then a sketch. That is like the golden ticket. If I go in CompFlow and I see a sketch, it's showing me another appraiser made a sketch. Then I can look at my sketch and kind of go off the two of them and see where we might be lining up and where we might be differing. So we want to tap into our local resources as much as we can. And then last, and I would say but not least, but I'm not saying but not least, I'm going to say last and definitely least, county tax assessor's website. If you've ever taken a DS Murphy class, you know we're not a big fan at all. A lot of tax record information is incorrect. We like to say bad input in, bad output, because if you have a tax assessor that has taken data about your house, and let's say you have a 2-story home and they call the bottom floor 1,000 square feet, and then they just double it. And all of a sudden you have a 2,000 square foot house when really it's a Cape Cod and there's only 200 square feet up there. You're paying way too many taxes. So there's a lot of reasons why we say that the tax assessor's website is the last place to go, but just the data isn't good data. We just really want to be careful about the county tax assessor's websites. So here's the housing market recovery index. And if you're looking at the recovery components, I know you all can see the general movement of the trends. Again, this is March 2021, but so that you know what each line represents. The red line is the recovery index. And then all of the home prices are the dark gray, the darkest of the gray, the one that you see April 1st, 2020 kind of dips way down and then it starts to build back up the prices. The lightest gray you'll see is the demand. So the demand being the highest value, you really are seeing that demand, which is something that we talked about earlier in this class, is that demand is there for sure. And then the housing supply index is going to be that slightly darker gray that you see along the very bottom. Sorry about that. Along the very bottom. And then the pace of the sales index is the middle gray that you see. So sort of following that, I guess, straighter trend and very similar to the recovery index is the price index. And you're seeing the price index kind of slowly creep back up, but you're not seeing any kind of major jump. So that dark line that appears to be semi-straight through the middle is, again, the house price index. I'm sorry, I read that wrong for y'all. But that is what we're seeing kind of slowly climb while that recovery index starts to level out. And again, demand being the highest jump. All right. Okay. And this is specifically the Atlanta, Sandy Springs, Roswell area. All right. So before we were talking about nationwide trends, and now we're talking about our area, the Atlanta, Sandy Springs, Roswell market. It's seeing trends very similar to the national trends with a little more of an emphasis on the supply in the Atlanta area. We're having, if you noticed in the national trends, I'll go back one so that you can be reminded. You see the supply start to dip as we get to December of 2020. There's that big dip down, and then around February it's recovering, but it's staying under the valuation, staying under. And then when you go to the Atlanta area, we're seeing that the price index is staying relatively straight across. And then the supply index is staying below the line basically within the whole time. The recovery index and the price index seem to be similar to the national. And they're following a similar trajectory to each other as well. And again, the highest jumping, leaping line is the demand. We're seeing the demand way, way, way up there. And we're just trying to keep pedaling our wheels and catch up there. If anybody is interested in checking out the chat, John is doing an awesome job keeping up with a bunch of questions. I know I'm very behind on the questions. So if you have one, definitely give it to John, or I will get to some more questions in a second. So let's see. Okay. So here's a market spotlight. This is comparatively within the national average. If you are looking at the bright red, you're looking at the hottest areas, the hotness rankings, if you will. And we are coming in warm, though. If you looked a month or so ago, we were a little closer to hot, but we're doing well in the Atlanta area. We have that nice little warm spot right there in terms of the hottest real estate markets right now. All right, and there's a current month compared to the previous month. This is all from Georgia MLS. So you can find this on georgiamls.com/statistics. And then that's just the Atlanta area. You'll see the change is 34% in the total residential units sold, and the median residential sale price is up 4.6%. These are all trends that you all are probably pretty aware of. It's less of a sort of holistic look at it. It's more of a, this is the market and this is what we're dealing with at this moment right now. And I think everybody on this call is probably pretty aware of this trend. And residential median sales price 2017 to the present is like a steady climb. And then we're now sitting in 2021 at the highest part of the climb. And as some people referred to, experiencing a bubble. But when we're looking at it, it's a slow climb, though, again, it is a climb. Residential units sold 2017 to the present. Now we're looking at, these statistics are also from Georgia MLS if you need them. And this is year over year. So the year that we're in right now, obviously being the pink because, we're only, now we're 5 months into it, but again, our statistics are from March. So we're seeing a climb that is already has a trajectory to maybe beat out or even start to see 2020, which is in the green, and kind of level out with it, but then hover a significant amount above 2017 to 2019 as it relates. And then these are just the active residential listings, again, 2017 to the present. And that's where we're seeing that dip. Can anybody explain why everything else is climbing? What is this dip? What is this? We're talking about active residential listings. Why a dip? You can put it in the chat. Shelly says, no one is selling. No inventory, COVID. Sellers don't know where they will go. Not enough to sell, COVID. People don't have confidence that they will find a house to move into. Sellers afraid they won't find a home. Fear. Kimberly, you really drove that home. I like that. Y'all, Kimberly says fear, fear, fear. I think that sums it up pretty well. People don't know what to do. If I leave, where am I going to go? You know, Donna says less new construction. That's true when we were looking at some of the new construction data, but mostly we looked at it before the crash. But yeah, that's true. Ditto to all of that. Fear they won't find the next home, and, you know, sell first or buy first. Paula, that's a good point. You know, I do a lot of appraisals for people that are rush orders right now because they find themselves in a situation where they found a house and they're like, I didn't think I would find that one that quickly, and now I need to sell this one, but I don't know what to do with it in this market. So, you know, we're seeing some strangeness, if you will, lack of previous rentals coming on the market due to eviction or moratoriums. All right, so what is the quantity of houses or inventory? This is what we were just talking about, you know, active listings, the inventory for residential detached and the inventory for residential attached. Looks a little bit different. Why do you think there would be a difference? You know, it's not a huge difference. The overall trends, and we're talking about inventory here, the overall trends look similar to kind of be an up and down, following the same pattern when we're talking about what month of the year we're in, but attached residential inventory hasn't fallen nearly as much as detached residential inventory. Again, I think you all know why that is, but if anybody wants to throw out why they think that might be, throw it in the chat. But yeah, Andrew sums it up very well. Proximity. Proximity is a factor we didn't think we were going to be chatting about as much as we are in 2020 and 2021. So attached inventory is different because you're having to factor in other people. People are wanting independent spaces, correct? Yeah, these are some things. So fast stats. A little bit of FMLS data for you. So if you want to look in your specific area, FMLS is a great resource for looking in your specific area to find out what the trends are in your area. Because again, we are taking wide swaths and discussing those. We're doing nationwide. We're talking about, I said, Atlanta, Sandy Springs, Roswell. That's a huge area. And anybody that works in Sandy Springs is not going to claim that their market is exactly the same as in town Atlanta. It isn't exactly the same. We are looking at these broad strokes and we're talking about trends in that way. But if you want to get more specific and you want to really understand your market where you have your geographical expertise, which I fully support and I definitely think that you should do, because as you've noticed from this class, there's a lot out there that's changing. You need to know your area to give yourself the best foot forward. So you can do a local market update. This one is specifically from February, but you can do this in FMLS through the fast stats, state, county, zip code, or draw your own custom area on the map using the function of just pulling back the map and circling in the area that you want to cover. In case your area, you feel specific to you, that it isn't necessarily following a zip code. Maybe it's following, 1 mile within a certain county or city square or something, wherever it pertains to your site. And then you can get all of this data on residential detached, attached, and then also the median sales price. It's basically like an area market conditions for you, but it's going to give you a better idea of what's happening right now. Raise your hand, literally, if you all have used this before, fast stats through FMLS, to figure out the market in your area right now. It's just a different way to see the numbers than running a conditions analysis. Okay. Marine. Pamela says you guys have Chartmasters reports. I am not very familiar with Chartmasters reports, but that's great. We're just trying to give you as many options moving forward that you can use tools that are going to be the best way for you. And it's up to you. How do you digest the information the best? What's going to work the best for you and make you the best agent for your client? You can do a micro or granular data search through market stats on FMLS. And this is just a little bit about how to use InfoSparks. So again, this is for your areas, the statistic reports and raw data, days in the market, percentage of list price, new listings, homes for sale. You can search by type, price range, rooms, absorption analysis report, and a monthly statistics overview through InfoSparks. And John just talked about this in the chat. He says the best thing to understand is to conduct a micro search to get the true data for your individual markets. This is what we're referring to. This is a micro data search in your individual areas. So if you specialize in a particular area, use live links so that each time you click the link, it will be the most current data. All right. So this is what you're looking at right here is the average percent of last list price, and you can follow the trends through your InfoSparks printout. All righty. So this is another thing that you can do. Right now, I'm just sort of showing you all the tools that you can print out. Just like when you get a CMA, you get your different pie charts. This is just the median days on the market that you can do as part of this InfoSparks. So URAR form stands for Uniform Residential Appraisal Report. That's Fannie Mae Form 1004. I'm sure you all have seen one of these before and are familiar with them. The 20-page gift that you all get. We are going to dive into that a little bit. So what is the #1 2021 appraisal issue? And again, you can make an argument that it's a few different things. But right now we're gonna make an argument that it's one specific thing as it relates to this crazy market class. But if I were to ask you this, what first comes to mind? What's your first thought when I say, what's the #1 2021 appraisal issue? I'm seeing a lot of over list offers, over asking price. Yep. Offer prices over asking pricing. Yes. And I would say that's definitely something to be concerned about. But if we're talking about an appraisal issue, right now we're just referring to the lack of appreciation adjustment. And I think that John mentioned it earlier when he was chiming in. He says no market adjustments, lack of appreciation adjustment. If you all have learned anything from all the crazy graphs we just threw at you, trends are changing. You need to have an appreciation adjustment. It is a back and forth. It's an art and a science. So you really just want to make sure that the appraisal is doing an appreciation adjustment, because as you can see month to month, everything's changing. You have got to stick with the times. So again, with the art and the science of appraising, the appraisers need to know which comps to use, how to make adjustments, how to correctly account for appreciation. I would say, as it refers to John and Curtis, since we're the appraisers on the call right now, and we work in 3 separate areas, I would say that we might have a different answer. We would each have a different answer to this question, because how do you correctly account for appreciation is going to vary depending on your area. John, do you want to weigh in for a second and just tell me, so if in your area, how would you say you would correctly account for appreciation? What are you seeing?
Yeah, you're definitely seeing a need for appreciation adjustments on just about everything we're doing. I'm typically in Gwinnett, Walton, Newton areas. They're ranging from say 0.6 to 1.5% per month. And to find that, we're doing we're pulling the market analysis for the year and then dividing that percentage by 12 to come up with the per month adjustment. And then we're adjusting contract prices, to come up with that market adjustment.
Yeah, for sure. Curtis, do you want to weigh in? What are you seeing is working best for correctly accounting for appreciation?
Definitely what John was saying, you have to look at each individual market. And even in my area, I cover Cherokee and North Cobb. It can be from school districts to school district that you've got to pull those numbers and see what kind of changes you're seeing. And like John had mentioned, I'm seeing as high as in some areas as 16% in a single year. If you don't make those adjustments, you're basically dating that sale for when it actually closed. And sometimes in complex properties, you have to use a dated sale. It doesn't matter what that sale sold for back in the day. You need to know what it would have sold for if it closed as of the effective date of your report. So that's why you have to make those appreciation adjustments.
Yeah, I think it's, you both made really good points. It's really important, the way that we account for appreciation may look the same, where we take the percentage, then we divide by 12 to kind of figure out the overall over the year and what each month brings. But in terms of how correctly accounting for appreciation looks in different markets, it's really important to understand your market to be able to make those corrections accurately. Apologies for whatever just happened behind me. I think a truck drove by, but we're back in action with the sound, so apologies, y'all. You can also do the 1004 MC report through FMLS. You just are gonna need to do something similar to when you're creating your CMAs and you're coming down with that tightened group of comps. You're gonna wanna make sure they're all checked off. And when you go to print, one of the options at the bottom on FMLS, under reports below print as PDF only, you'll see the 1004 MC report. You can run, it's a quick one-page thing where you can see market trends just by the number, and then you can do your division that way through FMLS. That's just another way to be able to do the math. For all of our reports with DS Murphy, we're running a 1004 MC. Even the ones that are just for consultation, because right now it's just really important to understand, again, really important to understand your market and what is it doing month to month. I used to, a year ago, start my searches with 180 days out, and now I'm starting 90 at the most because it's changing so often. So appreciation is based on prior comparable properties, and appraisers do not use the entire market. When applied to comparables in the appraisal, we use under contract date versus the appraisal date. Appreciation is taken exclusively from MLS. So again, I cannot drive home the importance of making sure that your data gets in there so that we have it to pull to get that appreciation data. If that listing didn't make it to FMLS, we're not pulling it. If it didn't make it to GAMLS, we're not pulling it. So please make sure your data is getting in there. And then again, if the comp is not an MLS, it will not be included. Appreciation is rarely linear. So if you're looking right here, this is a 1004 MC report from an appraisal, and you're looking at median comparable sales price. Right here, we're not seeing a linear appreciation. We're seeing 856 to 828 to 924. And again, you want to make sure that you're using your comparables, that you're not just taking a swath from the neighborhood with, 6-bedroom houses and 2-bedroom houses, because a 6-bedroom house is not comparable to a 2-bedroom house. That buyer is not the same. Make sure, again, we have highlighted, that you're looking at comparables, that everything that you've checked off in those boxes is a comparable property. So even though we have all these as comparable properties, again, it is rarely linear. If we compare the median value at the end of the year with the beginning of the year, we would calculate the annual appreciation of 8%. And John was mentioning he's seeing as much as 16, or maybe it was Curtis that said 16, but we're seeing a huge annual appreciation. If we look at the current quarter compared to the prior quarter, we have 22% annual appreciation. Again, it's rarely linear, just tap into it. Okay, so when you're reporting appreciation, this is where you'll see date of sale and time, and you can see across the board as we have entered it, we are making big appreciation adjustments for the difference in the sale month, because we want to make sure that we're accounting for that appreciation, making sure that we know that's a much older sale and that was a different market even a month ago. So this needs to be in your appraisal report. So you want to be up on this data just as much to be able to run it yourself. So 106, sorry, 6 minutes behind, my friends. It is 106. We can do another break right now. So 116.
And we have Nancy with the question. She has her hand raised.
Oh, sure. What's up?
Let me give you the mic.
Okay.
Did it go? There it goes.
Nancy, did you have a question?
I didn't have a question. I'm sorry. My hand was raised accidentally.
Okay. No worries. No worries.
Kimberly does though.
All right.
She's got a real hand and a Zoom hand.
All right. Well, we'll go ahead. It is 106 right now. I will see everybody at 107. I'll see everybody at
Go ahead, Kimberly. You're good. You're good. Go ahead.
One question. The last slide we were just looking at.
Sure, I can go back.
I was just wondering, and I'm trying to wrap my head around this, and with the date and the time and adjusting. Can you just explain that just a little deeper? I'm really, the date of the sale and the time is considered with each one in the appreciation, and how do you adjust? So it's that's plus 19%?
Sure. You know what? Because I already said to everybody that we take a break, I'm gonna pull up I'm gonna keep this slide up for everybody to take a look at. Cool. And then the first thing that I do, just so you have longer to look at it, to wrap your head around it. And the first thing I do at 117 when we come back is I will address that, because that's a really good question. So the first thing we'll do is we will talk about how to come to those appreciation adjustment numbers. And in the next section, we're going to talk about a little bit more about adjustments too, and kind of that apples to apples negotiation. So we will definitely get to that first thing, but I will see everybody at 117.
Thank you.
Yeah, of course. Good question. Okay, it's 1:17. I'm gonna give everybody a minute or two to get back. And then we will start talking about the reporting appreciation, and we'll go into the hour 3. All right, give everybody one more minute. We'll get started at 1:19. Make sure your cameras are on for CE. Okay. Well, since we're going to be talking about, it's 1:19 now, since we're going to be talking first about the question that you had from the previous slide, I'll go ahead and get started. So you were asking about, how did we come up with that idea for adjustment? The first thing that I want to say, this is an older slide, and I am not 100% in love with some of the aspects of it. So I want to point those out because I did not create this specific slide. And so there's a few things that kind of stand out to me. One major thing is if you're looking at the information that we have highlighted in orange, you're looking at the date of sale for the subject, which in this specific case is the Briarstone Ridge Way. We're looking at the date as the 29th of January, 2021. And my first question is, why are we even looking at something in 2019? But I'm guessing it was just the clearest across the board fake example that we had. So I would say that was my first red flag, but barring that issue, I think maybe using something that was under contract in 2019 just gives you a bigger amount of time that has gone by to show you that you need to make sure that you're accounting for appreciation over time. So John put in the chat, what does the S stand for and what does the C stand for? Can anybody tell me in this URAR form that we're looking at right now, highlighted in the orange, when we're talking about making these adjustments, you see two separate dates. What's the S and what's the C? You can put it in the chat. Yeah, so C is the contract date and S is the sale date. So I guess that was a little bit of a trick question. And it's good that we are having these classes and conversations because sometimes you don't know what you don't know, or you don't know what you assume others know. So this home sold in May of 2020. That's what we're looking at when we're looking at this data. But the contract is August of 2019. So barring the thing that I mentioned before, which is that's an old sale, I wouldn't use it anyway. Let's just say these are the ones you have to use. Working under that assumption, what we're saying is that the appraiser is using the contract price because that's what they're willing to pay on that day at that time. So even if they're closing all the way in May the next year, they paid this $848,000. So in May of 2020, it's going to appreciate. So it's going to be different. And in January of 2021, it'll be even more appreciated in this market 2021 right now. So what we're talking about when we make these adjustments is looking at the yearly trend and then dividing by 12 to find out what the month-to-month percentage of change is. And then what you're doing is you're taking the final sale price of the comparable. Don't ever touch the subject. You take the comparable, and what you're going to be doing is accounting for that appreciation by a percentage of the sales price based on how old that contract price is. So that $43,000 adjustment is a much larger adjustment in comp 1 than it is in comp 3 for the contract being in June of 2020, even though the two properties only sold 5 months apart from each other. That's when they sold. We're interested in when they went under contract. When was the price agreed upon on the contract date? So you'll see that the percentage of the sales price of the 848 is around 5% that has been appreciated. 5% of the 848. So you're adding 43,000, and you're adding a similar amount because it's a similar sales price in the second comparable, and they both were under contract in August of 2019. So you're adjusting by a similar amount. And then when you get to comp 3, it's a much smaller adjustment because you're looking at June of 2020 to January of 2021, as opposed to August to January of a year and a half later, which you shouldn't be doing anyway, like I said, but that's how we got there. Does that answer your question? I guess give me a thumbs up or in a chat. Let me know if you feel like your question was answered. I hope so. All right, so we're moving into market exposure. Hour 3, we are, and I promise you we will end on time. The things we're going to be talking about in this hour is we want to know the signs of incompetence and fraud. You want to know your market. You want to do your research. The importance of market exposure. And again, all of these things we've touched on a little bit in the class already. And then communication. Communication is so important. Appraisals during COVID. Again, we have touched on this, but appraisals are looking a little bit different right now, and you may or may not have seen this. A full appraisal report is what you all are most likely used to. That as a firm across the board, that's what we're doing, full appraisal reports. That is not to say that we won't do a desktop or a drive. We won't do another type of appraisal in a very, very extenuating circumstance. But in that situation where, you know, somebody is high risk or the person has COVID, we can't enter their home, you know, there might be reasons, extenuating circumstances. But overall, our company policy is to only do full appraisal reports. So that's what you're seeing. If you're seeing something from DS Murphy, you're seeing a full appraisal report because that's what we can stand by. The liability on the appraiser is still the same, no matter what kind of appraisal report it is. Fannie and FHA have made exceptions to normal appraisal procedures during COVID-19, but they're still requiring that the full appraisal report be completed. And then we have a but with a lot of exclamation points. There are other types of appraisals that we're seeing right now, desktop appraisals. For a desktop appraisal, they never go to the property at all. Never go to the property at all. A drive-by is seeing the property at street level, where you've been to the property, you see that it is still physically standing, and you can glean some sort of information from that, but it's still, you're hanging your hat on something that you haven't inspected. And that's a hard thing in terms of liability. So we try to steer clear of those. The appraisal is liable for incorrect physical data and is still required to have current photos. So in certain situations, appraisers are emailing the owner and saying, can you send me current photos of what it looks like? You can see from this, just from the introduction of these two types, where the issues may arise, where you might not get as accurate an appraisal. But these are some exceptions that have been made during COVID for people to feel safe and for people to feel like they're able to continue doing their jobs. These are just some ways to identify if you're looking at the URAR form, because you may have said, oh, I didn't know these types existed. I didn't know that an appraiser was allowed to do that right now. And these are just some ways that you can identify it on the report. We've obviously, the black boxes, we redacted any personal information, but these are just some ways. If you look at the map reference right here in the yellow, you can see it's a drive-by. The map reference for a full appraisal is a number. So you can see drive-by desktop and the full number. So that's your first place to look so that you know where to find it if you're wondering if that has happened to you in the past. Or if you first say, well, this appraisal seemed really off. It doesn't even seem like they went in the house. Look here and check, do your due diligence and find out. Bifurcated and hybrid appraisals. Bifurcated, I feel like Scott might hate this word. Scott Murphy might hate this word more than anything in the English language. I don't know. But bifurcated is this new beast that we're seeing. It means divided or branched into two parts. Individual number one inspects the property. A real estate agent, another appraiser, another entity performs the inspection and the measurement. Generally somebody who's hired for less. And then individual number two writes the restricted appraisal report. And then a licensed certified appraiser is individual number two, and they're developing the opinion of value from the desktop. They haven't seen the place, but individual number one has, and has sent them all the information. So it's bifurcated. It's in two parts. Two people are working on the same problem. So that's going to bring up a whole other can of worms. What do you think, in your opinion, having this be the method, what issues do you think this would bring up? Why would a bifurcated appraisal not be a good way to go? And by the way, DS Murphy does not and will not ever do bifurcated appraisals. Shelley says time delays. Yeah, that's one of them. Two different opinions, two different people. Can you trust individual number one? Paul, that's big. That's the big one. I'm individual number two. I'm liable for what goes on that paper. Can I trust individual number one enough to hang my hat on what they say? Can I do that? I don't think so. Even if it's my closest of friends. It's my license, it's my word, it's my liability. So I wouldn't do that. Lots of information from person to person, says Ed. Yep, classic game of telephone. Thoughts get lost, meanings get lost. True, definitely something to think about. Considerations are geographic competence, condition, measurement, and then under measurement, ANSI and AMS. Those are just two standards of measurement. And even amongst the two understood types of measurement or standards of measurement, there are discrepancies. ANSI wants you to go to the nearest tenth when you measure. AMS has a different standard. So, you know, when you're sending out a first individual, you don't always know what standard they're going to use, and then you take their information. And again, like we said, the game of telephone just starts to get jumbled along the way. And with a hybrid, both individual number one and individual number two are appraisers. So some could argue that that is a more reliable way to do an appraisal by two people. It's still not a great idea, but it might be slightly more competent, arguably. Either way, bifurcated and hybrid appraisals are a separate beast. So here is the sales comparison approach. As I mentioned before, appraisals have income approach and cost approach and sales comparison approach. But right now, in most of your situations, you're only going to be dealing with the sales comparison approach. The cost approach really applies to new construction mostly because it's cost in units and how to reproduce. So sales comparison approach is really what you're going to be dealing with the most. So we're looking at the URAR report for a sale in the sales comparison approach section, and you're going to be looking at how we break down those comps. And when we talked about the date of sale time and the appreciation adjustments, we're going to talk in general right now about just adjustments. The adjustments are subjective, but must be supportable. If you see on that spreadsheet that I just showed you on the form that you see an adjustment where you kind of, just like the question that we had before, where did you get that? Where did that come from? I hope that if you didn't understand where it came from, that somewhere in the form, the appraiser has supported the decision. If it brings up a red flag in your mind, or if it's going to bring up an underwriter red flag, it must be supportable, even though it's subjective. Adjustments are based on the incremental difference a buyer is willing to pay for a given feature. And you're going, well, what does that mean? And one of the main things is, while some are rooted in cost does not always equal value. And the example that I almost always give when I'm teaching any class and we're talking about adjustments is, raise your hand if you've had that client that came to you and said, well, I spent $100,000 on the landscaping in the backyard, so I better see $100,000 back for that. And I give this example all the time because everybody's seen the client that has spent a lot of money on something that meant a lot to them and gave them a lot of return on investment, but a lot of times it's emotionally tied. So we want to remember that when you're making an adjustment, it's the difference of buyers willing to pay for that. Are you going to find a buyer willing to pay for $100,000 in landscaping improvements in the backyard on every house? You may find one somewhere if it's a multi-million-dollar house, but in general, I'm going to say no. You're not going to find a buyer willing to pay that difference. Again, it's somewhat rooted in cost, but it doesn't always equal value. So the two things we like everybody to remember is CBS and CIA. If the comp is better, subtract. And if the comp is inferior, you add. And sometimes if you've taken another DS Murphy class or heard about adjustments, some people may say CSS, which is if the comp is superior, subtract. If the comp is inferior, you add. It's the same thing. The market will tell you when the adjustments are needed. For instance, the lovely eyesore behind the ranch right there. So looking at this grid, does anything catch your eye? You can put it in the chat. If there's anything that stands out to you when you look at this, what is it? Yeah. The minus 24. If the comp is inferior, you add. You do not subtract. Adjustment down. All right, so you always want to adjust the comp to the subject. I think I mentioned it before, but we're not adjusting ever the subject value. We're always adjusting the comp value. They're derived and extracted based on the actions of buyers and sellers. Again, what is somebody willing to pay for that difference? What's the contributory value of that one thing? And that's what you're adjusting on the comp. What is the best adjustment for a feature? If you have taken a class with me, if you've taken a class with anybody in DS Murphy, you probably know the answer to this. So if we're talking apples to apples, put it in the chat. What is the best adjustment? What's our favorite adjustment? Most beautiful adjustment you've ever seen in your life? Anybody? I will be clearer. The best adjustment amount. What's the best adjustment amount? Think numbers. What's the best number? Yes, Laura. None, nothing, zero. Zero. The best adjustment for a feature is zero. It means that apples equal apples. Everything across the board is the same. You have found a comp that has all the same stuff. For instance, you have a comp with a beautiful pool and your subject has a beautiful pool and they're very similar, apples to apples. I didn't make an adjustment for a pool. I am in good standing. I am in a great place. I am happy. The adjustment is zero. Not making adjustment because it's work is not a zero adjustment. All right, so the importance of bracketing, which I'm sure you've heard of as well. We just want to mention you need to have one bigger and one smaller, because right now we're specifically looking at square footage. This is a GLA example, gross living area example. Why do you think we want to make sure there's one bigger and one smaller? Because we don't want to overstate or understate the value. It's like a scale. We're doing a balancing act. We want to make sure there's one higher and one lower so that we're not making all of our adjustments up or all of our adjustments down. So we want to make sure that we bracketed everything. So again, because we're talking about the market and the crazy market, if you will, red flags in some of the boxes on the form would be, you know, rural property, declining values, an oversupply, a marketing time of over 6 months. That's going to bring up questions. That's going to make you go, huh, what's happening there? So, and this is the area where you will find it in the neighborhood section. This is where you would see those boxes checked. Okay, so urban versus suburban versus rural. This is another Scott Murphy favorite slide right here. If you stand naked on the front porch and the neighbors can't see you, it's rural. If you stand naked on the front porch and the neighbors call the cops on you, it's suburban. If you stand naked on the front porch and the neighbors ignore you, it's urban. So you want to look at net and gross adjustments for red flags as well. Net adjustments should be below 15% and gross adjustments should be below 25%. This, again, is a jumping off point. This is a red flag, something to look for in your appraisal reports. It doesn't mean that if the net adjustments don't fall within these parameters that they are wrong or bad or the appraisal report is inaccurate. This is a jumping off point. This is what it generally should be. These are underwriter red flags. These are things we're looking for. Again, it's subjective at times, but it needs to be supportive. So if you are above 15% on the net adjustments, you need to explain, because there are times that will happen. So just make sure that you're looking out and then answering it if you are outside the lines. So who can talk to appraisers? This is a question we get in almost every class. Are real estate agents allowed to talk to appraisers? What is the answer to that question? You can use the chat. Yes, I think Pamela's yes and Andrea's yes are my favorite because there were exclamation points and caps locks involved. Yes, appraisers are allowed to talk to the agents. Yes, you can talk to us, and it is encouraged. Specifically, DS Murphy encourages it. Not only are agents allowed to talk to appraisers, but they should be asking for agents for information and be initiating the conversation. I don't know how many times I have heard Scott tell a group of agents to, once you're under contract, take the lockbox off. Because you want to meet that appraiser. You want that face-to-face time. You want to hand them what you know. Because as I mentioned in this class multiple times, we are working together to make the data verifiable, to make sure you're getting good information, the best information, the most up-to-date, and just staying on top of your geographic expertise as well. Appraisers are required to verify all their comparable sales, and includes speaking to an interested party. It's also a DS Murphy policy on pending sales that we call the listing agent and just inquire as to if they came in around the list price, or if that's way off. They don't have to tell us the exact value, but you can glean so much from having those conversations and from speaking to interested parties. Agents are a wealth of information for an appraiser, so you should be having these conversations. And then the asterisk at the bottom, only until the appraiser has submitted the appraisal report to the lender. After that, hands off. Are loan officers allowed to talk to appraisers? Everybody says no. So yes and no. HVCC and the Dodd-Frank Act do not prohibit communication between the loan officer and the appraiser. If you remember when we talked about the Dodd-Frank Act before, and I said a little bit about transparency, it's more about making sure that there isn't advocacy, but there is transparency. So it's not prohibited communication, but there's no advocacy. Both rules state that the loan officer may not talk to the appraiser about value. Because again, value and advocacy are closely tied. So when is it undue influence? You can suggest, not demand. These are, someone was asking earlier, nice ways to ask certain things. For your consideration, I provided you this packet. Here's some relevant data I've put together on similar properties. Let me meet you at the property to unlock the door. Here's the consultation appraisal and the recent improvements. So these are things to add to also that nice conversation that you're going to have to find out whether they have geographic expertise or know the area. An appraisal packet. This is just something within DS Murphy that we suggest that you have ready for the appraiser. It's helping them out. Bank appraisers are generally getting paid less because it's going through multiple avenues. So, you know, you are helpful. You are giving them your insider knowledge. Give them a packet. Give them, you know, it says here's some relevant data I've put together on similar properties. We're not saying here are your comps. We're saying let me give you this lovely thing where I have some insider information. Availability of data. The appraisers need data, and we talked about this before, so I'm not gonna drive it home too much. Recent data, verifiable data. Appreciation is extracted from sales and MLS, and if the data available doesn't include recent sales, then it may not accurately depict the current market. We talked about that before. Make sure that your listings make it into those multiple listing services so that we can verify and we know the most recent data and we can run the numbers. As the availability of listings declines, the potential for pocket listings and off-market sales increases. And this is where we're saying we need to make sure that these sales are getting in so that we can be verifying. We don't want to veer into the world of the pocket sales. Agent feel that if they didn't need to put the listing in MLS, there's no need to put it in there. I'm here to tell you, please put it in MLS. It is not an option. It's not a no one's gonna know. How are they gonna know? Put it in MLS. It helps everyone out. Pocket listings hurt everyone. Property was not adequately exposed to the market. The data is not available for other agents, buyers, and appraisers. It impacts its future sales, future appraisals of other properties. And many lenders will not allow a property to be used as a comp if it has not been exposed to the market, because one of those tenets is accurate exposure to the market. Any agent that obtains exclusive rights to sell a listing is required to input that listing into MLS. Can an appraiser use an off-market sale as a comparable? Institutional answer is no. Lenders and users of appraisals advise against the use of off-market sales, but it's ultimately up to the individual appraiser. If you can offer a HUD statement, if you can offer something that gives evidentiary support to the actual sale, and it is an off-market sale, it's up to the individual appraiser whether or not to use that. But again, you want to give everybody the best chance at success. In order to use any comp, the appraiser must be able to prove or be reasonably confident that it was exposed to the market. It's arm's length. It's knowledgeable buyer and seller, like we said, a willing, knowledgeable participant on both sides. You're able to confirm the terms and can verify that physical data and that physical information. Okay. It must have exposure to market. It has influence on valuation. It cannot be used to appraisers for subsequent appraisals in the neighborhood. So again, it needs to make it in there. We need to make sure we're having this exposure to the market. The big or less understood issue affecting appraisals is the impact on appreciation, which we went into at the end of the last hour. Pocket listing is a fair housing violation. What? How? Equal housing opportunity. How is it a fair housing violation? Any ideas? Not seeing much in the chat, so we'll just go forward. If the property is located in an area with predominance of a certain group or located in an area underrepresented by a protected group and/or it was not properly marketed to all people, that is when we are in a fair housing violation. It needs to be marketed to all people. There could be a discriminatory effect. And the intent is not required to commit a violation. Protected classes are race, color, religion, sex, handicap, familial status, and national origin. So this is just a recent article that the suburban home buyer could be a foreign government. iBuyers purchasing non-arm's length transactions, purchasing the property as is, no appraisal, no inspection. These are just some of the things that you're running into when you have these iBuyers purchasing. And iBuyers selling, again, take a loss. They operate as a corporation, so it's not as a typical seller. It's a numbers game. Changing in prices based on algorithms, and it may unload properties below market values, which can significantly impact a neighborhood. Today's changing market conditions, and we're talking about supply. Volumes of listing is at an all-time low, which we saw earlier. New construction is impeded, the availability of developing lots, the lack of building material, so many supply chain management issues backed up by COVID, and then we have prices. So supply is being affected by all kinds of things. Existing home sellers are not willing to sell due to the lack of replacement property, which I think I probably had 7 of you mention when we talked about it earlier. This is definitely something that's in the forefront of most people's minds. And then when we're talking about demand, the demand is heightened because with COVID-19, you have pent-up demand, changes in housing needs. You didn't have that office space. You didn't have separate office space, different location needs due to the ability to work from home. And then right now, obviously, you're seeing low interest rates and then rising interest rates in general. When it does go back up, that's going to change the demand post-election. These are all issues that affect the changing market conditions. And demand. Decreased supply plus increased demand is major appraisal issues. Appraisals are based on precedent. We need the prior sales. Again, statistics are based on where we've been. We need those prior sales. More importantly, we need prior sales which are comparable to our subject for sure. Again, apples to apples, the best adjustment is 0. And so just to drive it home, know your market. This has to do with some of the factors that affect valuation, which we talked about before. Location, 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 proximity to subject, price point, school district, style and size, Other major factors which you all brought up that are major right now that, you know, may or may not be major moving forward, but you need to know your market to know whether they are major. Because I'm sure if I asked any of you right now, you would know without a doubt whether these are major factors in your specific market. But acreage, pools, outbuildings, outdoor living, a view is going to be a major determinant in, you know, a lake area, golf course, etc. Acreage, you may not have that as a major factor in your market. You know, in a subdivision, a lot is a lot. And I don't mean a lot is a lot. I mean, a lot is a lot is a lot. In most cases, know your area. You know, if your lot is 0.2 and 2 doors down is 0.4, I'm probably not going to make an adjustment for that because I know the market and I know that in that area, that's the typical lot size. You really want to take into consideration upgrades and updates, flood area, recently sold, and the availability of comps. So these are just things to know your market. What's important to buyers? What features does the subject have? Find similar comparables, do your research, control the transaction. That's just bringing us full circle as we started with some pictures and getting to know your geographic expertise and also knowing your specific subject property and what your buyers are looking for. And you guys threw out a bunch of really great answers. I think people were saying, you know, outdoor living space, people were saying updates, move-in ready, extra office space. That's what people are looking for now. But again, it's ever changing. So know your market. And in the case that you're concerned or you don't feel that you know your market really well and you need a little assistance, we have our consultation appraisal, which we have to mention at the end because it's one of the things that kind of sets us apart from the others is that we have this consultation appraisal where we will come in and we'll be sure that your listing is priced correctly and make sure that the seller is not leaving any money on the table. One of the major stars or plus signs to this is that if the subsequent bank appraisal comes in low or below the value, we will write the rebuttal letter and have it to you within 48 hours. And the success rate on that changes all the time, but the last time I heard it quoted was like low 90s, 92, 93% success rate on that. We rarely have to write those rebuttals because again, if you're showing up and you're meeting the appraiser with your appraisal package, if that package includes a consultation appraisal, you've done the work for them. Not with valuation, but you've given them some of their homework on research. And it'll help you to be aware of any of the potential bank appraisal issues that you might come across, which as we're talking about this crazy market, obviously you all are seeing a lot of issues come up. And then, yeah, this is our bread and butter, consultation appraisals. I do more consultation appraisals than any other type. Again, with a background in architecture and design, it's how I see a property. It's how I see something going in your return on investment. So that being said, and I really, really want to take a minute to thank everybody for being here. It was a really large class today, and I really enjoyed spending 3 hours with you. And I hope that we weren't too boring for you. I hope you enjoyed it. I want to thank John and Curtis for showing up and answering your questions. John, Curtis, I couldn't see the questions you were answering because I'm not on YouTube, but hats off to you. I know John was working very diligently on the chat here because I could not at all keep up with how fast the questions were coming. I am going to put up the sign out slide next. I will stick around. I don't know if John and Curtis can stick around, but I will stick around for a few minutes after the class ends to answer extra questions that may have come up. But I want to be respectful of the 2 o'clock end time and give you guys these next 3 or 4 minutes to sign out. If you are here for CE credit, you need to sign out. So let me put up that slide for you. Yes.
Will your Maple make sure that your Curtis and John's cell phone numbers are in the chat so that they can, now that they know you guys, they could reach out to y'all individually?
Sure. Yeah. I'll make sure that goes up. After this slide is the slide with my cell phone number. So I'll put that up. And then I'll make sure, like John, if you want to share your cell phone number to everybody in the chat right now, and then I'll share Curtis's because I know he's in.
Yeah, everybody, you heard the areas they're in. They've got many more appraisers. You know, if you need a pre-listing appraisal, definitely reach out to them individually, and or like Kate said earlier, they've got the company number and they can look at your area, and they'll do a fabulous job for those. So just keep them in mind. You know, they are in wanting to be engaged with all you guys as agents and wanting to do this as much as possible. It's a great income producer for the company, and it's definitely a great value for the agents and for everyone on the listings and the buyer side. You know, you may want an opinion. If you have a reconsideration of value, you can pay them to do that for you. You won't have to worry about that at Shelter because we do that, help do that up front with the appraisers, but with other companies, you know, they can definitely help you.
Thank you so much to Shelter Mortgage and Keller Williams. We really appreciate y'all. Darwin says the typical cost of a pre-listing appraisal, $450 is the typical cost. If there are extenuating circumstances or it's unique, it can go up from there. And that could be anything from the house being, you know, having excess acreage. It could be the house is very large. Anything worth over $1 million is usually a little bit more unique, or is going to require a little bit more research and time, depending.
Question.
Yeah.
So on an appraisal, if there's say a difference of say like 0.4 acres or 0.6 acres, do they take that into consideration, or is there a point where the difference in acreage is so small that they consider it immaterial in terms of how much it would sell for?
I would say off the bat, and not knowing where those are located, I probably wouldn't make an adjustment for 0.4 acres versus 0.6 acres. But again, that's a jumping off point. If it's somewhere where it matters how much land you have, there's some extra factor weighing in. Maybe it's lakefront property, it's on a golf course, something like that. It may matter in certain situations, but off the bat, I would say that difference isn't a very large difference. And so my initial reaction would be probably not.
Okay.
And then Radhika says, how much time until you can do a pre-listing appointment? Radhika, it depends where it is and who the appraiser is. All appraisers work with a different workload. And so it would just depend. Right now, across the board with the company, it's seeming to take about 10 to 14 business days to get the appraisal back. And that's just for, you know, your run-of-the-mill appraisals. And there are some that can do a rush. There are some that can get it to you a little quicker if they don't have as much on their plate. And if you have specific needs, feel free to email the office, and the office will definitely direct you to the right person to make sure that if your specific need is faster or in an area and it isn't so much about the turnaround time, be specific when you email the office.